data coming from? It is not coming from other sort of addictions or your behaviors. It is entirely coming through your phone. The phone is the basis of your research in this whole world, and this is the basis of artificial intelligence. And I believe that the chemical addiction affect you in one way: physical health, mental health, psychological health. But in smartphone addictions, you are being captured, you are being covered, you are being guided by the forces which are beyond your control. Even if, let us say, even in day-to-day life, if you see, you are being guided at each and every step of your life by some kind of a mobile advisors. It affects billions of people, and it is almost a contagious disease. Now you see, there is hardly anybody who does not use a smartphone. Hardly anybody. Okay, and one person is using, other person is using. You can't see 4 people sitting in a hall or anywhere without using a phone at any point of time. And it is affecting all sections of society. Addictions, mental health, we have seen that there is a socio-economic status and all that. But it is affecting whether it's an illiterate to literate, poor to rich, all sections of society are affected. And it is seen all around across all generation and socio-cultural. If the youngest child which you see, people coming to your clinic and you see you're interviewing a couple and there is a young child, 1 year, 2 year old. What the child start crying or anything, the first thing which you see in the child hand is a smartphone. A child is playing, glued onto the screen, and the parents are talking. This is one article which I in the very prestigious magazine Forbes on social media and mental health way back during the COVID time, and that somehow increased my presence to. That was a gateway to my Meta, and I believe you know what is a Meta. Meta is the world biggest research team of Facebook, based in Ireland, and I was invited to have my comments as an advisor on this particular group. And not only it was not a free kind of a contribution to Meta, because I always believe whenever you want to deliver a professional advice to anywhere, so it should carry some kind of a. And they paid me 10, and my commitment towards them was $10 per minute. And 45 minutes of a session was recorded, and they paid me for this amount, and that is I'm a regular advisor to this thing, and on a Google digital health as well. So when we talk about smartphone addiction, so there are various synonyms which we use for the same purpose with very little variation. Whether we talk about smartphone addiction, internet addiction, problematic internet use, internet gaming disorder, pathological internet use, technological addiction, behavior addiction, internet dependency, there are more than 100 words which are used for the same kind of a thing. And practically we come on to the same thing. So let us see what is a smartphone. Smartphone is it's a phone with the computer application. So we know that we began with the desktop, then laptop, then iPads. So anything which has this computer application is, when it gets integrated into the phone, it becomes a smartphone. And the first phone was way back in 1994. And what is the smartness of the smartphone? Every phone has a unique smartness. And the smartness is just by the strength of hardware and mobile operating system. As of now, iPhone 14 Pro has the 16 billion transistor and is the world highest, smartest phone, they call it. And this is the data not from Apple, but from the overall technology side. And what is a smartphone addiction then? Again, since Dr. P.D. Garg was saying, sir was saying that it is not categorized under the DSM or ICD. So definition as such is also vague, and there are many definitions which are used for the same. But the most widely accepted definition is lack of control over the use of cell phone. Means compulsive use with various consequences, psychosocial consequences, like we see in any addiction. And this is additional, fear of being without a cell phone, nomophobia. This makes it different from a chemical addiction. So when you do not have a phone along with you, that's called nomophobia, and that makes it a complete definition. Compulsive use, then psychosocial consequences, and then nomophobia. And it develops like alcohol or any other chemical addiction. Why do I say that? Because there is a tolerance to withdrawal symptoms, which are reported in literature in smartphone addictions, and it works like a security blanket to overcome anxiety, stress, and depression. Many people which we see who come to us for these problems or who come to us with psychological problems, if you look at it, their screen time use, smartphone use, I make it a point in my clinical practice to take this history definitely from the patients. And then you see many of them use it for the management. Whenever they stress, they go on a phone or anxiety or depression. And it comorbid with various psychological disorder, but controversy is still existing whether it is an independent disorder or it is just a problem in the society. Smartphone addiction also have 4 very important impulse control problems along with it. Very, very important. Online compulsions like gaming or gambling. We have started to see patients with gaming disorders. Internet gambling, and now the government of India has recently in digital platform have legalized this gambling on through the let us say what is the Stream 11, for example, on IPS. There are so many platforms. What is that? So you are betting on players, you are betting on a game, you are betting on the predictions, and this is something which is going to become a first step towards the addictions. Same is various games. You have seen so many games, PUBG game and all, so many games have come up with a lot of mortality across the world. And they were, over a period of time, there is no control over all these games. Cyber sex addiction, this is another problem. And we see in clinical as well that it is the one area wherein the relationships are getting affected because porn addiction has become so common in these days. And you don't have initial problems. Initially, whenever people used to go to phones, they have to go buy books and this and that, then where to keep them. Now there is everywhere phone is available to you. And people are spending hours and hours. I have treated so many people with porn addictions. And surprisingly, I have seen one latest case is a medical professional. And this person goes out on a vacation or a conference anywhere, he spent three days just watching porn. Nothing else. Going out of the home. So porn addiction has become another area of smartphone addiction in virtual relationships. Look at the number of friends. You have plenty of friends. How many friends you can have on Facebook? Anybody has an idea? 5,000. And if you are very curious, you have many people, then you can go up to, you make a Facebook profile, business profile, you can go up to 10,000. So you have plenty of virtual friends, but when it comes to actual friendship, like I was talking during the dinner also, one of the purpose of this conference or meeting is that we connect to each other, and this is very, very good aim. But in kind of a social world or virtual world, you don't meet people. So you don't have a friend, but you have friends, what we call it as. And information overload. People like to secure so much of information. Even in health, people come to us with reading about the diseases, treatment, course, prognosis, and everything. They question you on day-to-day basis. And the problem which we see between our generation and the young generation is that whatever you tell your children, they will not believe you until they will check on a Google. So everything is Googled these days. Even if you want to go to a restaurant to eat out with your family, your children, young children, they will say, they will first go the review, they will show the picture, they will show everything, and then they will guide you. Okay, this is the best place we can have. So this is how our actions, our decisions are taken off by this. So my next question is smartphone addiction is really an addiction? This is a question. So review of studies do not show existence of smartphone addictions due to following reasons. Why it is not an addiction? Weakness of screening and correlational study. Till date, the data is not as much on smartphone addictions. There is scarcity of longitudinal studies. There is a vague definition, absence or less of physical or psychological consequence. Even if they are not reported as much. Absence, it can be problematic behavior. People say, oh, okay, it's a problem in the society. There are many problems. Traffic is a problem. This is a problem. and domestic issues are the problem. It's a problem. It's not an addiction. Now, whatever we talk, whatever we read, it is more through the media than through the actual research. Second thing is internet addiction. Even if it is an addiction, is it a biopsychosocial concept? Because addiction, we have read that it's a biopsychosocial disease. Now I come to that point. Behavior addiction has been described under the category of substance-related and addictive disorder in DSM-5 and ICD-11. Behavioral addictions are already mentioned in DSM-5 for research purposes. In ICD-11, it has become an independent diagnosis. It has already reached to that kind of a level. And the idea of incorporating behavioral addiction in the area of substance-related disorder emerged from the evidence of clinical findings, neuropsychological finding, neurobiological finding, biochemical finding, and genetic findings. This is already there. 10 years back, I delivered a talk on internet addiction. Even then, there was a huge data. And that is the data which goes into DSM-5 and ICD-11, and where it is coming very close to categorized as an internet addiction. These findings support the significant association and similarities between two classes of disorder, and on the basis of such an association, a common biopsychosocial concept can be hypothesized. This was way back in 2008. The concept and model has been widely accepted in the chemical addiction, and the first article on internet addiction came in way back in 1994 in Canadian Journal. From that time till now, you see how many years has already been. This is something which I use in my clinic. This is not, I have not seen it anywhere in the books. How when I deal with children and adolescents with this problem. So what is the relationship between phone and addiction? Now this picture says phone. I always equate phone with this revolver. So is there any similarity between the two? Let us see. Is it addictive or harmful? Of its own. Of its own, if you have a phone and you have a revolver. Of its own, may be harmful, may not be harmful. But when it comes with bullets, now without bullet, revolver is nothing. At the most can cause kind of a blunt injury. But when it comes with a bullet, then it becomes a complete weapon. Without phone. Similarly, when phone becomes a weapon of mass destruction, I always say it's a weapon of mass destruction when it comes with internet. So until internet is not there in the phone, what you can do? Lal button, hara button, you can call and you can close the call. That's it. The people used to say the old phones were Nokia and other types. Okay, but today when it comes to with internet, then it opens you to the world and world opens to you. This is how there are no boundaries between the two. Let's come on to some use patterns. This is important from the statistic point of view. Look at it, the smartphone user ranking in the world. Number 1 is China and number 2 is India. But United States has the highest internet penetration and the lowest problem with smartphone. Surprisingly, lowest problem with smartphone. Even the research which has taken place, the lowest findings were seen in US. Why? Because people are very, very good where what to do and what not to do, knowing about that. And over here across, we see people using phone, old people, our grandparents, sometimes they don't know how to use a phone, post picture this and there, here and there, and that creates a problem. Internet user worldwide in millions. 5,300 millions people as of the statistic in 2000. And how much of these smartphone users use the social media? Social media is the most important thing for which the smartphone is there. Almost 92% worldwide. And when it comes to India, statistically February data, almost 2/3. India is not behind. So our Jio has done a great job by making cheaper internet packages. We are the one who get the cheapest internet in the world. Even in US, you take a monthly package of internet, it costs you about $30. In India, I think 200, 300, 400 rupees, you can get an unlimited phone, unlimited internet and everything. So when people use smartphone, which is the first thing which they Facebook. User of smartphone are using Facebook, followed by YouTube, and then WhatsApp, and then Instagram. And most of the story end here. Now let us see the Facebook user across the world, ranking wise. Interestingly, not behind, number 1. India is number 1. Leading countries based on Instagram. Coming down, Insta is going up. The word Insta is driven instant. No need to wait. Go immediately, quickly. And WhatsApp user by the country, again, all the social media users by population is highest in India. And this is the revenue. All over the world, this is the huge $418.88 US dollars, billion US dollars. This is the revenue coming from your phone. No industry involved, nothing. Only the players are there. Google is a player, then Facebook is a player, others are the player, and they are generating revenues out of it. This is the, if you look at the culprit, screen time is the culprit. Screen time is the biggest predictor of smartphone addiction or problematic use. What is the screen time? Amount of time a person spends in front of screen. It includes computer screen, TV, video game, mobile phone. But what has happened over a period of time? How many of people? You will be knowing there are many houses who do not have now digital connections. Everything is on phone. Many people don't have a desktop, laptop, no. So smartphone has replaced all screens. So smartphone screen is the most important as far as the screen time is concerned. These are the WHO guidelines as per the age is concerned. 0 to 2 years, 0 hours. There must be someone over here whose children or grandchildren must be less than 2 years of age. Do we give them phone or not? You see, 2 to 5 years, 1 hour or less. But phones are there all the time with the children, young children, infants. And 5 to 12 years, 2 hours or less. There are no guidelines beyond this age. Only children up to adults. Now let us see the screen time around the world. Highest is with Philippines, 10 hours and 56 minutes. Japan has the lowest. So is the screen time in India. And I always ask my patients, so let me check your screen time, how much phone you use with consent. And you know, every smartphone has that feature. They check on your screen time, how much time you spent on phone, where you have spent, in which application you have used, and from which time to which time you used, how much battery your smartphone has used. So this whole data is already there on your phone. Let us come on to the problems with increased use of smartphones. Visual problem depending on the screen time. Most common, people come with refractive errors, headache. Most complaint which you see with the increased screen time is visual problem and tendency for abuse or addictions. You have seen cyber addictions and smartphone addictions and child abuse. Everything is happening, and early exposure to porn or crime. I can tell you in our clinical practice, I've seen people exposed to porn as early as 6-7 years of age. And this history I always take from the parents whenever children come and visit in my clinic. Has your child been exposed to porn? The mother generally say, I keep a complete control on the phone. But when you talk to the child later on, there are. So early exposure, which was on an adolescent behavior, early adulthood behavior has come advanced to it. And fake account make them prone for criminal behaviors. This was one of the area where Meta has involved me, how to detect fake accounts. There are ways, there are plenty of ways you can identify the fake accounts. And bullying, you have seen many children, adolescents, they are being bullied on the phone and they are being taken money from there. Then physical health related obesity, you become a potato couch, cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, infertility. Have anybody seen being referred a gynae infertility patient to your clinic for the stress management? I have seen many. And the first thing which I have done is take the screen time. It has a direct, I don't have a data, but I can definitely tell you with my 10 years of experience, you look at their profile of hormones. You reduce screen time or stop the screen time during the reproductive when they are planning for pregnancy, and you see a change. Very important cause, because the screen time in the working versus housewife also there is a data. Housewife screen time is much bigger than the working women's screen time. Impotence is another area. Like hormones to then the gym supplement, and now we talk about the screen time. And then various pains. Look at the headache and this tendinitis. You are holding all the time, neuralgias, all the time you have a pain. And then you expose yourself to the world, and the risks are there with you. Smartphone and its negative impact on life, loneliness and depression. People believe that it's an activity to engage with the world. Actually, it makes you lonely. You keep yourself to the bedroom, and you stay within the bathroom. In fact, people, after there is a data which says that after the smartphone have come, people's toilet time have increased. They go to the bath, they go to the toilet, and they spend hours. You can look at it. And this is one of the reasons when you talk to a gastroenterologist, in their habit changes, they always say, don't carry your smartphone to the toilet. And people believe this is the best time for relaxation. So newspaper have replaced. Earlier people used to carry newspaper, now newspaper have replaced. It's fueling anxiety. All the time you are anxious, knowing about others, knowing about yourself. And people who are prone to anxiety, many people get panic attacks when there is some kind of a adverse news or the phone is not there with them. And it always constant to maintain some kind of anxiety, increasing stress. ADHD patients, when you are glued on the screen for a longer period of time, it reduces your attention and concentration. People believe the other way, that I'm there on the phone most of the time, so my concentration is very, very good. But that concentration is in a very, very specific task. Whether it's a gaming, a child can play game for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. When you look at the attention concentration span, it will not be there. It will not be there. There are academic difficulties. And this is disturbing your sleep. Most important cause of insomnia as of now is smartphone use. People do not wish to sleep. When people come to me for the problem with their sleep, I always ask them, do you wish to sleep or not? They said, no, sir, we want to go to the WhatsApp and Facebook and know the world. And they do not wish to sleep. That's why the sleep has got advanced. Young children during COVID and otherwise also, they sleep very early in the day. 3, 4, 6 a.m. Gamers sleep very early and they sleep throughout the day. Increase self-absorption. And this is one of the reasons. There is one case report which says that it is going to be a parameter, it is going to become one of the predictor of psychosis. Other mental health issues are self-esteem. People generally who are more onto the higher screen time, their self-esteem is low. They avoid social situations, they avoid social interactions. Now already you see the children, they do not like to interact with whenever you social kids and others. Self-harm. This has become one of the parameters. This is also understanding. Yes, sir. Substance abuse, especially cannabis, psychosis, psychosomatic symptoms. There are anger issues which are associated with the substance. You are sleep deprived, then you are not able to perform the way you should be performing, and it leads to anger. Relationship problem and other behavioral issues. So many issues are there which are directly or indirectly linked to. Sign and symptoms of smartphone, no specific amount of time. Kitni der time use karna, there is no criteria. How frequently, there is no criteria. But like the definition says, it becomes a problem when there is a compulsive use and dysfunction. How do you know that the smartphone addiction is developing? You have a trouble completing task at work or home. You stop prioritizing what is your task, and so you spend more time on phone rather than on the work. Isolation from family and friends you're trying to avoid. Your priority is on use of a phone. Concealing your smartphone use. People do not like to discuss about how much you are using, where they are using, how much dysfunction they are having. If you discuss with the patients and you have a good rapport with them, then you can. And here, constant fear of missing out. Marital discords are happening. Wife doesn't want to give phone, husband doesn't want to give, passwords are not exchanged. Okay? And if the phone is left at home, you will leave everything and you will go and pick up your phone first. As if there is something, it's like a weapon or it's something, lot of information is there with you. Feeling of dread, anxiety or panic if you leave the smartphone at home. People who are having this problem, they typically suffer from these kind of withdrawal symptoms: restlessness, anger, difficulty concentrating, sleep problem, and craving, constant craving. You can't leave a child. आप बच्चे को बोलो घर पे रहना है, आज फोन नहीं देंगे, possible ही नहीं है. Child से क्या leave, वो give me the phone. With the phone they will leave, and they are not bothered what time do you come. They may enjoy you come late. As far as management is concerned, it work on these models: prevention, being conscious, be aware of the problem, be strong, it is possible to control it, and being disciplined. Inconsistency doesn't work. Whenever you have to have an assessment, complete history of a use pattern, psychological and physical assessment, screening tests. There are many screening tests which are there about the comorbid illness, and then mental health and phone use pattern dysfunctional assessment, like DUBI, and there are many screening tools. I am not going to go into the details, but they are not for diagnostic purposes. Time is less, I have to finish. So these are smartphone compulsive tests. So it says at what level, what intervention. So it says that if your score is high, then you need to consult a mental health professional. Somebody, if you are interested, I can give you this presentation to you. You can go through these assessment tests: internet addiction test, virtual addiction test, online pornography test, child technology test, digital distraction, Greenfield, treatment of smartphone addiction, digital detox. I started discussing about a decade where patient come to me says, "I want a digital detox." I can assure you, I was not even aware that digital detox is a particular format. This is how digital detox is a particular way of treating people and taking them off smartphone. Individual or group therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, relationship therapy, group support, self-help group. Principles. Most important is the rapport establishment. Always, if the child or adolescent is there, talk to the person first rather than the parents. If you're dealing with children and adolescents, talk to them first. Take the use pattern, how it can lead to biopsychosocial model, all possible patient-centric approach, not the parent-centric, patient-centric approach. Handle specific issues, relapse prevention, medicine if they are needed. Self-help tips for smartphone addiction. Recognize the trigger that make you reach to your phone. Understand the difference between interacting in person and online. Build your coping skills. Recognize your underlying problem that may support your compulsive behavior. Strengthen your support network. Modify your smartphone use step by step. Set goal when you can use the smartphone. Set the goals. Like in my clinic, my phone goes off at 3:30 p.m. and it on at 5:30 p.m. All my patients knows it. I am not approachable. At night also, I put my phone on a DND. Because this is, I have to manage my own screen time. Don't bring your phone to bed or bed. Replace your smartphone with healthy activity. Play phone stack games. Remove social media applications. Just a second.
Okay, we have set your phone table below, and we always keep it by the side, and you can see all the phones and camera over here, because the family which eat together, talk together, always and always stay together. Have a good family.
So this is exactly I follow in my family and my social circle. Helping a child or teen with smartphone addictions. Another maximum 1 minute. Be a good role model. You manage your behavior, a child or people around you will follow. Use, limit child smartphone use, create phone-free zone, encourage other interests or social activities. Talk to your child. Do not hesitate not to seek help. If there are issues, it should be. There are support group also, online gamer anonymous and sex and love addict anonymous. This is an image which I showed you at the end. Look at these two images. It's there in my clinic. So when you use this image, so if you use your phone 50 minutes and above, this is how the thermo at the time the redness will continue to rise, and I can tell you it work. It work in the people understanding. And this is how the smartphone people are moving in the world. They are carrying. You see a lot of accident. People are falling from there because they are not aware what is next. Thanks a lot. And please understand, offline is a new luxury. If you want to have a luxurious life, start staying offline as long as you can. Thank you very much.
Now, before I start my request to the audience.
And generally there is a play throughout sometimes, and then people start using it responsibly. That's what happens with technology everywhere. So let me tell you very, very frankly, the solution doesn't lie in saying just talking about it and knowing about this is an addiction. The solution lies in preventing. When we are raising up our kids, media, it's not about internet, it's about all media, that's about TV and other kind of things. Responsible use means that we ask them, when they use it, how long they use it, and for what purposes they use it. We cannot do anything without cell phone. Let me tell you something. Nobody is here, can work for it. Survival is one thing, but nobody can survive without a smartphone as of today. That's the reality of life. But we must understand that the developers, Meta or anybody, they are far smarter than us. So they will keep on developing apps which are far, far more addictive. We be careful about that. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
I would also like to request the chairpersons to give a moment.
Sir, excuse me, sir. You are on a great place. Yeah. Okay.
May I request Chairperson of the session, Dr. Tushar Jagawat and Dr. Purvida, to come forward for the session. Dr. Tushar and Dr. Purv.
आप सर थोड़ा सा लिफ्ट कर अच्छा प्लीज कम ओके
May I request coordinator to introduce our chairpersons.
First of all, I invite Dr. Purvida. He did his MD from SMS Medical College, Jaipur in 2002. Now doing practice in Bathinda since 2003. Recently, he was a co-chairperson in the IPS. He is senior professor and head of the department in NIMS Medical College, Jaipur. He has published more than 25 publications and he is a co-author and co-editor in 4 books related to psychiatric illness. He is past president of IPS North Zone, Delhi Society, Psychiatric Society, and IPS Rajasthan branch. Area of interest, social community, psychiatry, and also Hindi poems. He has written Hindi poems in almost all psychiatric illness and related to de-addiction. In every day in psychiatric illness day, we are continuously reading his poems in Hindi. Thank you, sir.
May I request Dr. Sandeep Bhola?
I would like to request Purab Milla sir and Tushar Jagawat secretary.
Welcome, Dr. Sandeep. Dr. Sandeep is India. He has been working against addiction like a freedom fighter. That we can say. And he single-handedly he has held so many positions in addiction control societies. Best of things I would like to tell about him is he is presently Deputy Medical Commissioner of Kapurthala, and his center was awarded as a national award by Honorable President of India on 26th of June 2016. He has been coordinator for Master Trainer for United Nations for National AIDS Control Society and many other international forums where he has taken Master Trainer for controlling addictions. He was the one, I have listened many times, he was the one who first reported about women addiction in Punjab and women's visiting his center. And I think he has started a separate center for women's addiction also. Addiction is separate wing in his addiction center. Am I right, Dr. Bola? Yes, separate wing. It's one of the only center that is separate wing for women also. So over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, chairpersons, for such a kind words in introducing me. And I am highly thankful to the Rajasthan chapter and the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity to talk about the women drug use, which has taken a backseat for the last so many years, and still we are not considering it, still we are not very serious about it. So the topic I had chosen is that challenges beyond diagnosis, drug use in women, because at that point of time I was thinking that dual diagnosis is the theme of this CME, and in the dual diagnosis there are so many eminent speakers who will be talking about mental health issues, talking about drug abuse, and the drug abuse leading to mental health, leading to drug abuse, and so many things are there. But when we are talking about this particular subgroup of population, subgroup of people who are using drugs, it is always there that there are so many challenges which are not written in the textbooks, which are not written in the differential diagnosis, which are not written in. Better be talking about this thing. When we talk about this kind of subgroup, the first thing that comes to our mind, in fact, in my mind, that this is a kind of hidden population. Is it really so? First is, what is the hidden population? It's not that population who have not come to us for the treatment, for the services, and to avail the services. it is that population to whom we have not been able to reach. We have not been able to make them comfortable so much that they will easily come to us for services, because so many centers we have, so many treatment options we have, so many things are there in our basket, but still we are not able to provide them the services. This is the hidden population. This is not one way that this is hidden. It is from both the sides. The situation is that the policy makers, the governments, they are still not very serious about the issue. They are not still thinking about the issue. They are not thinking about the depth of the problem that we are facing right now and will be facing in the coming few months or few years. One such article appeared in one of the leading newspapers in Punjab in 2018-19, that Punjab's new edict. And see, this is women who are standing at our de-addiction center there and looking at that. And I was really wondering at that time that is it really so that this is the new addiction? Are these the new addicts who are coming to us, who have started coming to us? That was not so. If you go to the see through the international literature, 19.5 million females are there, ages 18 or older, who have used illicit drug in the past 1 year. This is a huge figure. This is 2019 figure. And if we see the Indian studies starting right from 2000 and till this time, every study has shown that all the number of drug users in this subgroup of drug users, there are 2 to 5% of the females in every group, starting from alcohol to opiates to polysubstance abuse. There have always been the women or in the range of 2 to 5%. This is again a huge number, and you can see that this is not the kind of new addicts we are having, not the new addicts we are seeing. It's the hidden population from our side also. That people have always been there, this group has always been there, but we have not been able to approach them. We have not been able to make them comfortable. The latest study, magnitude of substance use in India, conducted by All India Institute and Government of India, this shows inhalant use 0.2%. It has always been there. It is there in that this. Yeah. But the irony of another irony of the situation is that the in every 5 drug users there is 1 female who is there in the drug using population. In 1 in 3, but the services who are availing, these are 1 in 5. So many of the most of the females are not going for services, not availing the kind of services, any kind of services. This was the one survey that was conducted in Punjab Opioid Dependent Survey, PODS, in 2014, and it was in 2015 that 1% of the population who are using opioids in the state of Punjab is 1%. 1% of the females are using the opioids. So that figure came out to be around say 8 to 10,000. There are a couple of things that need to be remembered as far as gender distribution is concerned in this particular survey. The survey was conducted only for opioid use, and no other substance was taken into consideration. indoor facilities, and the data was collected from the indoor facilities. For the last 1 year, to all the persons who have been admitted in the de-addiction centers in the indoor facilities, data was collected from these centers. And then they were taken as seats, and their pairs were again interviewed. At that point of time, there were no indoor facilities, there were no indoor de-addiction centers in the state of Punjab, exclusively for women. So you can see that even after these hindrances, the figure came out to be 1%, which is 8 to 10%, and you can very well imagine that actual figure would be beyond this, much beyond this, around 40 to 50,000 of females who are using these drugs. Another thing, that substance use is influenced by sex differences based on the biology and gender, based on the culturally defined roles in the society. Women need less time before they become addicted. They easily become addicted to the drugs, easily become dependent on the substances they use. Women use drugs in smaller amount than men, but they can experience effect more strongly. Using a smaller amount of the substance, they get more affected by that. They have more drug cravings and may be more likely to relapse after treatment. Sex hormones can make women more sensitive to the drugs. Women experience more physical effects on their heart and blood vessels. Women are more likely to die from overdose. So see, all these are the challenges which we have been talking about. We have been talking about making a diagnosis, fulfilling the criteria for dependence, fulfilling the criteria for abuse, misuse. But these are the issues which are beyond this. We have diagnosed, but still these issues are still have been left unaddressed. When that particular news item appeared in the newspaper, after a couple of months, another news item appeared, Her Home Without Drugs. We had started a drug de-addiction center exclusively for women. We named it Nav Kiran Kendra, which is free for all the clients, with all the female staff members in place, a separate unit in the hospital. Whole premises is under CCTV coverage. It was started in 2017, supported by government and supported by district administration and district Red Cross Society. So somehow we were this. There were so many challenges. There were so many obstacles were created before starting this kind of treatment facility. But still, with all the efforts from this district administration and government, we were able to start this program. This is the drug de-addiction center for women we are having. Then again, another challenge came up, that is the barriers to the access. Why women are not coming to this de-addiction facility, which was started for them, which is exclusive for them, and the atmosphere have been planned that way that they feel comfortable over there, and it is the only one of its kind facility in the whole of the state. Still, women were not coming for the treatment. Systemic barriers, lack of decision-making power. If a lady is dependent for the drugs, if a lady starts taking the drug because of under the influence of her male partner, then getting the treatment for that, getting admitted, or taking any kind of services, availing any kind of services, again she is dependent upon that her male partner, and she doesn't have the decision-making power. Amongst the professionals, we were also not very knowledgeable about the kind of treatment we should provide, what kind of things we should be made available for them. Just for example, we never ever thought that starting a women de-addiction center, we will be requiring the sanitary napkins also for them. This is a very basic thing, but we never knew that because we were not knowledgeable about the kind of services which should be there. Lack of appropriate gender responses and low-cost evidence-based treatment models. These are systemic barriers, another challenge. Structural barriers, child care. If a lady has to take the addiction treatment as an indoor patient, she has the problem of the challenge of child care is always there. Lack of services for pregnant women. Location and cost of treatment is another problem. Lack of women-only inpatient care for de-addiction. Lack of physical safety at the treatment center, even though it is the whole of the staff is that of women. Lack of harm reduction program, lack of information. Socio-cultural and personal barriers, stigma, which is still quite high. Fear of losing custody of their children, lack of support from family, particularly husband, partner, or any significant male in her life. Substance use as a solution rather than a problem, lack of confidence in the effectiveness of the treatment. Just an example that many of the females who were coming to us for the treatment have been the sex workers. For them, taking the drugs, using the drugs has been a solution to their problem. It was never a problem for them. It is that thus it is a solution to their problem. Like if you are going to have sex with a stranger, 4 or 5 strangers in a day, it is not possible to do that thing without taking a drug, without being under the influence of some kind of drug. So they were not feeling that this is a problem. This is the solution for the problems we are facing. We are already facing a problem, and drugs are being the solution to that. So that is another big challenge to convincing them to quit the drugs. WHO recommended that this is the list of harm reduction services that should be made available for any kind of any person, a male, female, or any other gender. Opioid substitution therapy with buprenorphine or with methadone, HIV testing services, ART services, prevention and treatment of sexually transmitted diseases, condom programs, targeted information and education and communication, community distribution of naloxone for prevention and treatment of opioid overdose, prevention, vaccination, diagnosis and treatment of hepatitis B and C, prevention, diagnosis and treatment of tuberculosis. So all these services are under the umbrella of harm reduction services recommended by WHO. This is the started in 2017, and interestingly, all these services mentioned by, except the needle syringe exchange program, everything else was there. It has been there. It is still there. All the programs are there in our program. Needle syringe exchange program. Somehow we were able to do it through the NGOs distributing the needles to the injecting drug users. Opioid substitution, buprenorphine and methadone. These services we have. HIV testing and ART clinic we have. STI clinic we have. Distribution we have made sure that this condom distribution is condoms are available to all in all the OPD based programs. Information, education and communication materials. For the overdose prevention, we had started a program named DOVE, Drug Overdose Education and Management. Prevention and vaccination of treatment of viral hepatitis, gynecology, treatment of tuberculosis. All these things, all the services recommended by WHO are there in our district hospital. Field visits are being done by the staff. Individual and group counseling by the staff members. And mask, sanitary napkin distribution during the COVID periods and otherwise also. And for the social protection scheme, there is Sakhi One Stop Center, which is started by Government of India, Ministry of Social Justice, which is for any kind of help, the female can approach any kind of domestic violence case, any kind of destitute women. She can approach this Sakhi One-Stop Center. And interestingly, this Sakhi One-Stop Center is situated inside the district hospital. So this is another women's sensitive harm reduction services which we have already mentioned. With the help of one organization, Alliance India HIV/AIDS Alliance, we had started a program, Comprehensive Health and Rights-Based Approach for Women Who Use Drugs, which was started in 2018 and we finished it in 2020. It was a pilot project for 7 SAARC countries to draft a policy that what kind of services should be made available for the women who are using drugs. A national level consultation workshop was held in which participants from all of the country were there. And so many deliberations were there. And again, gender-based violence against women who use drugs. The service providers training was conducted not only in our premises, in our hospital, also in the this prison ward also, where there are women who are lodged in prison and who are using drugs. The story never finished here, that we started providing the outreach services through this program. And the interesting thing is that the outreach workers we hired under this program were the women who were already using drugs or who were on the treatment. Because many of the women were not ready to come, as we had talked that we call them hidden population, but we have convinced them, we were not able to make them comfortable. So those women, those outreach workers who were from the drug using community would go to the hotspots, would talk to them, would convince them to avail the services, not the de-addiction services, in fact the other health related services, be it gynecological checkup, be it medical checkup, be it HIV testing, be it hepatitis testing, all these services they would convince that let's go and get all these tests done. And after some time, when they are linked to you, when they start feeling comfortable, you'd ask them to quit the drugs, get beyond this drug abuse, beyond the criteria which has been laid in ICD or DSM. So these things have to be taken care of, and somehow we are managing. But I am sharing all those things because I want that all these such services should be made available for not for this particular hidden population, for children, for transgenders, for other people who are not able to avail our services, who are still not ready to come, who are still not comfortable with us. We should make our services in plan our services. We should tailor our services in such a way that everyone is comfortable. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Bhola, for excellent deliberation of the
de-addiction services comfortably made for them, tailor-made for them, should be made available, more accessible, easily accessible for them.
Thank you for the presentation, sir. I wanted to ask, were there any changes in the kind of the therapy you employed for this? You mentioned that there were changes. There were more relapse in the women and they were more addicted to the substance compared to the men. So the pharmacological or psychological interventions that you employed, were they any different from the one that we use for in general for male adults?
In female population, the pharmacological therapy is not much different from what we are using for the male population, except for the pregnant women. In the pregnancy, during the pregnancy, we avoid using the buprenorphine and naloxone combination. We use plain buprenorphine. Otherwise, we try to avoid most of the other drugs which can be harmful for the fetus. So we try to give lesser of the dose, but not at the expense of that the female starts feeling the withdrawals. She should be made comfortable with that. So pharmacologically there is not much difference, but what I have observed is that we need lesser dose of the medication to treat them. So that is the difference. Another thing is that the kind of in which condition the female is coming to you, like in pregnancy, in lactation, or there's not much difference during whenever she is having her periods. But at that time also, we try to make the treatment, tailor the treatment in that way that she is comfortable during that phase also. But the only thing is, the main point here is that they should be feeling comfortable staying over there, coming to the center, taking the treatment, talking to the counselor, talking to the psychiatrist. That is the major thing that needs to be done.
Thank you.
I would like to fall upon the.
It was a wonderful initiative regarding like starting the rehabilitation center for the female specialties. Because like as far as my knowledge is there, even in the bigger institutes, there are no separate female de-addiction wards. Even at like when I worked in Enhance at that time, there was not one in Ibhas also. I am not aware about the AIDS de-addiction center, but now the problem is rampant even in the female substance use is highly there. So these institutes should come forward and start the female de-addiction wards. Then because long stay patients, they keep the de-addiction patients along with the other long stay patients. So separate de-addiction wards can also be there for them.
As I had said, that it was not a easy cakewalk for us also to start this. We started with this proposal in 2016, and it took almost a year for us to convince the government that we need such a service stay. So I'm of the opinion that we don't need many of the de-addiction indoor services in any of the state. We need more of the outreach programs. We need more of the people who can go to this what we call hidden population and convince them to come out to avail the services.
Thank you very much, sir.
And that center is still doing great work. Many other things which Dr. Kala is known for, some of those things come to my mind, is about his passion for understanding the impact of partition in Punjab. I'm not sure that how many of the young postgraduates sitting here know about the exhibition of some photographs which Dr. Kala curated with Dr. Alok Sari and which went from place. And then he wrote also about the impact of, as I was saying, about the impact of partition in 1947 on people with mental illness. Because I don't want to do the history, I would urge all of you to read his novel and also his book about this aspect. Third thing which Dr. Kala should be known about is that it's a very popular society, parallel to the Indian Psychiatric Society, is the Indian Association of Private Psychiatry. And he was the person who gave the idea first of all. I think he wrote an article first of all in Indian Psychiatric Society only about the need for such kind of association, because the private psychiatry was taking its root in late 1980s and 90s, and there was no forum for them. The Indian Psychiatric Society was all about academics, institutions, professors giving lectures, but the problems being faced by private psychiatrists, and especially after the Mental Health Act of 1987, right? The problems increased many folds, and the need was felt to have some forum where private psychiatrists could also discuss the problems and carry it to the government for some rectification. And then Dr. Kala has been very active in the field of drug dependence and de-addiction from the time when none of the medical colleges in Punjab were paying attention to this particular aspect of crisis. And we all know about his work in Ludhiana in his center and about the various articles which he wrote. And then came this book, which is about the various aspects of drug dependence and its management in India, and with particular reference to Punjab. So it has been covered in our WhatsApp groups, and people have written about the various aspects which this book covers, and I am sure that's what Dr. Kala is going to tell us this morning. So thank you very much, Roop, again, to let me be part of a session where Dr. Kala is speaking. It's always a pleasure to listen to him, and wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Khandelwal sir. And it's my proud privilege to remember the days when I learned my basic psychiatry skills from Dr. A.K. Kala. And I remember the day in 1989, August, when he came to Sri Ganganagar to inaugurate my small nursing home. And the nursing home was named as Psychiatric Hospital and De-Addiction Center. And in his inaugural remarks, he said that we don't just stop at detoxification. This is the beginning of the management. You must go ahead with rehabilitation. Detoxification is just its beginning. And I remember those things, and over the years, I was lucky that I got the opportunity to start a rehabilitation center, because I remember those words, the piece of advice that he gave, and I'm glad that he has agreed to come over to Sri Ganganagar for this particular thought sharing session. And it is not just a lecture. And I am happy to announce that Dr. Aninda Sidana, my daughter and a consultant psychiatrist who's practicing in Hanumangarh, will be in conversation and having dialogues with Dr. A.K. Kala. Over to Dr. Aninda.
I would like to call you on the stage. You can have a seat. Thank you. It's my privilege and I'm grateful to get this opportunity to have conversation with sir. And it is all about what he has written in his book. Most of what you know about addiction is wrong. So I would like to read the foreword of the book, which has been written by Dr. Atul Ambekar, who is professor at AIMS, and then we can proceed with it. The foreword by Dr. Atul Ambekar, it states, as an addiction psychiatrist, I have been for a comprehensive, authoritative, and yet easy to read book for readers on addictions in India. I found it rather strange that in this large and diverse country of ours, with a good number, no, not enough though, of professionals with the required level of knowledge of the subject, there is no single source of information on the history of our tryst with addictive drugs, as well as our ongoing love-hate relationship in this area. The popular rhetoric of a drug-free world, notwithstanding, this book elegantly introduces us to the way Indians have been engaging with addictive substances, and as today's youngsters call their relationship they call their relationship with drugs also it's complicated. So Professor Kala is very well known among the psychiatric fraternity in India. He has been writing fiction, as Sir mentioned, regarding the impact of partition on the mental health of the individuals. His two books, which even I have read, Two and a Half Rivers and The Unsafe Asylum, they give a very good insight on the impact of mental health on people. While for understandable reasons, the addiction situation in Punjab figures prominently here in this book, but this book is not only about the Punjab, it's basically about the addictions and what we need to know about. The book begins where it all started with the early human being civilizations and the establishment of the relationship with mind-altering substances. Subsequently, Sir shares a rich and entertaining historical account of the use of various substances in Indian society through different periods in the history, with more focus on the recent past, of course, but he has also focused on the Mughal era and the India era before the partition and also previous eras. Uh, Apart from the history of addictions, Professor Kala also describes the science of addictions, the nature versus nurture debate, which about the origins of addictions have been handled in this book very carefully. As highlight of most of what you know about addiction is wrong is the way the data has been treated. Statistics about the number of people using drugs and those affected by addictions have not just been quoted but explained in an easy to understand manner. And also we all know the situation in Punjab and India, especially when the elections are coming, the statistics are jumbled up. The book draws the reader's attention towards the criticality of credible data on substance use and skillfully demonstrates how to derive meaning from that data. Interspersed throughout most of what you know about addiction is wrong are key messages about how a mature society should handle the drug problem. The book exhorts policymakers to shun the war on drugs and instead seriously consider making peace with the drugs. As Kofi Annan, former Secretary General of the United Nations, put it, drugs have destroyed many lives, but wrong government policies have destroyed many more. So we wish our policymakers would take note and meanwhile the pursuit to enhance our understanding on effective management of addictions and how we should continue it. And I would like to ask Dr. Kala a few questions. The first question is that comes to mind as you have been fiction writer. So what were the thoughts behind writing this book and what provoked you to write this book?
Thank you, Ananda. What provoked me to write a book? Actually, that's not difficult at all. All of you, including me, we have been hearing this course of say no to drugs, and very sincere and intense police officer today morning was lamenting the fact that the drugs keep coming and you catch two people and then two others, maybe three others join in, and that he correctly surmised is because the demand is there. And he wanted to know when will and how will that demand extinguish. Actually, I have a bad news for the gentleman. The demand is not going to go anywhere, anytime. Why? Because addictions have been there since time immemorial. Now, human beings and some animals also have a desire to periodically feel different. And this is the fourth drive after Ronald Seeger calls it the fourth drive after food, sex, and sleep. So innate drives don't go anywhere. Innate drives have to be managed. So when I heard such questions and expecting answers from scratch, obviously this most of what you know about addiction is wrong, is not at all addressed to psychiatrists. It is totally addressed to general leaders and policymakers, which is more important. So then, when I hear such, well-meant questions, and the concern behind them, what comes to mind is that they don't understand the basic premise. Very few people do. And that is how the idea of the book came about for the first time. Of course, one book is not going to, change things a lot. Also, the idea is that psychiatrists should take it upon themselves to change these perceptions in whatever way they can. It can be a book, it can be a blog, it can be a YouTube channel, or whatever. We do that, but unfortunately we fall into the same trap of saying, say no to drugs. Or, very inane comments like, पहले आप शराब को पीते हैं, फिर शराब आपको पीती है. They know that it is harmful. Everybody knows that drugs are. People who smoke, they smoke with packet पे लिखा हुआ है कैंसर होता है. Information of that sort is not the problem. The problem lies elsewhere in the basic things. It is the assumption that if we make enough efforts, addiction will go away. Like I said, the bad news is not. The desire to feel different is innate. That produces use. So there's the first category of users. A lot of people use drugs without getting it. Most of the users actually don't get it. Most of the users do not get addicted. We know a lot of people who we know socially, and a lot of them drink. But how many of them are alcoholics? If we just think about our acquaintances and relatives, and actually very few. Most of them, maybe 90%, they don't drink to, as some patient put it, to get shit-faced. They just drink to have that alteration in their vague state of consciousness once in a weekend, within a year or two. So these things, these nuances, unless people know, more importantly, the educators. And educators are not necessarily psychiatrists, they're teachers, very often. So that probably answers the question to some extent.
But with this, I have another question. Like as you said, there is an innate desire among everyone. So why is it like male population is more dependent on the drugs and females are less? So is there like females have less innate desire, or are there other environmental factors which are playing the role?
No, the desire is the same. Desire is the same. आप लोगों ने देखा होगा कि बच्चियां, young girls, वो पंजाब में उसको कीकली कहते हैं. ऐसे हाथ पकड़ के ऐसे वो go around in circles. तब जब तक कि उनको चक्कर ना आ जाए, और वो जब चक्कर वो आता है, then they shriek in glee. That is an alteration of, vague consciousness.
or this is innate. That desire is the same in men and women. Because it is innate. You're right. उसकी मैनिफेस्टेशन डिफरेंटली क्यों होती है कि ये शुरू से हिस्टोरिकली के आदमी लोग बाहर से जमाने में बाहर जाते थे, औरतें गरीब रहती थी, काम करके आए हैं, और it was in the society that always been patriarchal. Men are, it's okay for the men to enjoy after a day's hard work, but women are expected to stay stone sober. That push them down, and then they don't use it to that extent. But what happens? Now you just heard a whole session on internet addiction. These are behavioral addictions. Behavioral addictions now, many of the behavioral addictions, women are overrepresented. Food addiction, sex addiction, compulsive shopping, compulsive plastic surgery. Women are. Yes, compulsive plastic surgery is a thing. You remember Michael Jackson? His face. So behavioral addictions are actually a bridge to understanding addiction. So here, behavioral addictions, we find some other behavioral addictions like gambling, like extreme sports, bungee jumping, skiing downhill, very dangerous sports. They are, so overall, the women probably will end up, having the same level of addictions, although not so much as a substance.
So it's like basically the adrenaline rush which people get through these behavioral addictions, then bungee jumping and extreme sports, and that is their innate desire is fulfilled.
Actually, the word used for the people who are habituated to extreme sports is adrenaline junkies. That's what they call it.
So now we can go back to the history and start like how the drugs and human beings have been evolutionary companions. And as we have read, even in the Charka Samhita, Vedas, Puranas, there have been mention of various sacred plants, various like medicines which have been derived from opium or cannabis for its medicinal purposes. And later on in US also there were some syrups which syrup given to calm down the baby which had opium. Like even like nowadays in Punjab in villages sometimes like बच्चों को गोली खिला देते हैं कि चुप रहेगा कि कुछ दवा दे देते हैं. So how the drugs have been started using and have they entered India and what was it?
See, because firstly about the world, it was about 10,000 years back that our ancestors, the hunter-gatherers, previously they were not settling down before that. 10,000 years back they started settling down. And the first thing that they did when they started settling down was to grow crops. And some of the crops, turned out to be opium and cannabis. And initially it wasn't done on purpose, they were not designed that way. But somehow they found these crops. And then they started growing it on their own patch of land. And that was 10,000 years back. 7,500 years back in Spain, in a cave, they found a skeleton. They didn't find a skeleton 7,500 years back. They found it now and carbonated it, found that it was 7,500 years old. And the bone analysis showed years of consumption of opium. That probably is the first opium addict that we know historically. And then, in the about 600, 700 years back, there were three large empires in the world. One was the Ottomans based in what is now Turkey, and then the Persian Empire and the Mughal empires. They were already there. all of them, the emperors, even the queens, they were taking opium. And the most opium, most luxuriantly luxuriant consumers, as somebody has written, but the Mughal emperors. It is documented in Akbar now, that Akbar by Abul Fazl was remote Akbar. Before that, his father Humayun took opium. These are all documented. These are not Akbar took, and then the worst was Jahangir. You know, we often read in history that when Jahangir का राजपाट नूर जहाँ देखती थी, तो वो इसलिए देखती थी because he was very badly addicted. And Jahangir's first wife died of an opium overdose. And so opium has been there in right, but cannabis has been very ancient. In our ancient textbooks, in for example, Atharvaveda or even Sushruta Samhita, they have mention of cannabis being used as treatments. They do not have a mention of opium. So, in all probability, opium came from outside with the Muslim traders who started coming to India in 600, 700 years, much before the Muslim emperors came. First the sultans and then. So history is important because it tells us that it has been, it has been part of us. So before Maharaja Ranjit Singh, there were various tribes of Punjab. Some of them were, occupied one area or another. There was a Bhangi empire. They was the biggest empire. They had Lahore and a lot of areas of Punjab. And they were not called Bhangis because they were a particular caste or something, because all of them took Bhang. So it has been there, it has been accepted to a large extent, certainly better than it is.
So regarding this Bhangis empire, in Lahore, still there is a Bhangia Di Topi, which is a place people visit, and Bhangia Di Top, so which is visited by people. So was it like earlier days people were more tolerant toward the drugs as compared to now? गांव में father बोलते थे पंजाबी का कुत्ता है तो शराब तो पिएगा ही.
Yeah, all of that.
Was it like that?
All of that, but at the same time, there is a very bifid response to society, particularly society like Punjab, to intoxicants. Firstly, the predominant religion, which is Sikhism, it totally prohibits all intoxicants. You are not a good Sikh if you are taking an intoxicant. But at the same time, on the other hand, there is also this notion that in the evening, if a toddler comes to a sick in the home, his father who is drinking, having drink, and पास में आते तो वो ड्रिंक में उंगली डाल के उसको चटा देते हैं, and the father feels very chuffed up in the So there is this bifid response, and yes, it is. You enter a reception, marriage reception in Punjab. Gate से सबसे पहले चीज जो नजर आती है ना बाहर नजर आती है, और because it's supposed to be something to be shown off, and so it is tolerated, but at the same time सड़क किनारे पे शराब पी के पड़ा हो उसको कोई उठाता नहीं, there is a contact. शराब पीना ठीक है, लेकिन शराबी हो जाना और ऐसे गिर जाना is not done. So it's a strange response.
Has this attitude of being more tolerant society earlier affected the prevalence rates of the alcohol use or opioid or cannabis over the years?
See, it was never lauded, but it was accepted, it was sanctioned, and See, it is a social engineering that sometimes law does. What NDPS Act has done, because alcohol is legal, alcohol को तो drug कोई देखते ही नहीं है। अब I am asking you to फर्ज करिए कि शराब जो है वो ऐसी सुंदर सुंदर बोतलों में ना आती, कैप्सूल्स में आती या इंजेक्शन में आती, तो और ऊपर से इलीगल होती, तो फिर तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं था, सब तक तो ये ड्रग है। It's the same ethyl alcohol. Now it is not a drug. It is because how can something be a drug which is available in restaurant, written on the menus, along with bread and omelette? It can't be a drug. This is a social engineering operation.
There is a difference in perception in cannabis, opium, then cigarette and alcohol also. Even smoking, like if someone is a chronic smoker in the family, people won't come for his treatment. But if in same family someone is using opiate, they will come for the treatment कि ये तो addict है. So there are instances because maybe you are right, like as alcohol is being sold in the even in the restaurant, so it is legal to do that it is accepted.
No, many of us were there last evening. I mean, last week, or anybody, you are not taking drugs.
Yes, sir.
No. So that is there, yes. You are asking something.
Regarding like, what about the attitude towards cannabis? Like cannabis has been medicalized in some of the countries. What about the status in India?
See, we have got off on a very wrong foot, the whole world. I'll tell you, Punjab में ऐसा था कि 85 से पहले that was when I started practice. तो वो कई surgeons, friends या वो बुलाते थे कि आके हमारा पेशेंट देख लो, कल इसकी सर्जरी है और हमें भी पता चला कि इसको तो ये तो ओपियम ले रहा 10 साल से, तो क्या करूँ? तो मेरे जैसे और बहुत से लोग, वो इसका एक स्टैंडर्ड था कि हम जाते थे और उसको देखते थे और उसको कहते थे कि अच्छा ऐसा करो कि इसको थोड़ी थोड़ी करके अभी 2-3 दिन में जितनी कम होती है करके तुम ऑपरेशन में इसका कर लो, और जब ये इसको ओरली अलाउड हो जाएगा तो पहले दिन इसको हाफ डोज दे देना और अगले दिन। सो इट वी हैड इंटीग्रेटेड इनटू आवर थिंकिंग कि आजकल वो नहीं कर सकते हैं, आजकल उसको पहले डिटॉक्सिफाई करेंगे, विच एक्चुअली इन द प्रोसेस वो जो हर्निया हाइड्रोसेल या जॉइंट रिप्लेसमेंट के लिए आया था वो तो एक साइड पे हो गया, प्रेडिक्शन का काम शुरू हो गया जो कि जिसकी जरूरत नहीं जिसके लिए वो आया नहीं। सो यस, द होल परसेप्शन हैज चेंज हाउ टू ट्रीट और लेट मी से मैनेज एडिक्शंस।
So what about the situation in Punjab? How Punjab was the crops, and then there was a backtrack. People started going out of India and also taking drugs and also. But how the how the Green Revolution has been?
Yes, I think that's very important. I'll tell you. So I was one of the speakers. So when I projected my transparency. Remember transparency? There used to be transparency. I don't think so. Yeah, okay.
सबने यूज किए सर, हम सबने यूज किए।
Okay. हाँ, OHP. So उस transparency में ये था कि पंजाब was the that time #1 state in whole of the country. तो मैंने कहा कि लेकिन फिर भी देखिए फर्स्ट है इसमें, लेकिन फिर भी मेंटल लेवल्स उतने हैं इम्प्लाइंग कि उसका इसके साथ रिलेशन होता है या नहीं होता। Somebody got up. He said कि I'm sorry to inform you but this is wrong and Punjab is now #2. Maharashtra is #1. Or actually he was right. Today Punjab is 19 out of 29. And this is over very short time। तो हुआ क्या था? हुआ यह था कि ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन की एक फेमीन था सारे कंट्री में, पंजाब बिकेम द ब्रेड बास्केट, वो उसके बहुत से फैक्टर्स थे तो कई साल तक it was, you know, number one. अब धीरे धीरे करके that production has एक किसान है उसके 2 बच्चे हो गए, आगे दो तीन और हो गए, वो लैंड होल्डिंग स्मॉल हो गई, is no longer feasible to use mechanized. तो that is how, you know, तो लोग खेती बाड़ी छोड़ के जाने लगे। पर जो बाकी सोसाइटीज में इंडस्ट्रियल नेट होता है वो पंजाब में नहीं है, बहुत स्टेबल लोग इंडस्ट्री जाते नहीं है। सो वेरियस रीजंस फॉर सो पंजाब कैन डेवलप। एंड सेकंड थिंग व्हाट हैपेंड अराउंड द सेम टाइम, जो ओपियम लोग आराम से खाते थे, एक्सेप्ट भी होते थे, आपके पास बैठा हुआ पता नहीं चलता था। और ओपियम जो गाँव में लेते थे लोग, most of them were not young people who take heroin. वो मिडिल ईस्ट से होते थे, सियाने लोग गिने जाते थे, लोग सलाइन लेने आते थे उनके पास। तो they were stable as Dr. Gandhi was once in the parliament. I was interviewing him and he said that Puki, which is open husk, is salu nasha, is kamau nasha. That you don't fight when you take opium or husk, and you keep earning, which doesn't happen with injectable heroin. No, what happens with the IPS is very clear. They just, you know, with one stroke they banned everything and prohibited all the intoxicants from the face of the earth. Even the use is criminal, except alcohol and tobacco, which by the way are more harmful than opium and IPS. So NDPS was partly to blame because a prohibition का एक golden rule है कि एक जगह पे prohibition लग जाए तो वहाँ के जो intoxicants होते हैं they become stronger. Simple logic है कि अब वहाँ से smuggling पे ही मिलेगा और smuggle करना पॉपी हस्क की बोरी तो ज़्यादा आसान है या एक हीरोइन के वाइल का। Obviously हीरोइन पॉपी हस्क मिलनी बंद हो जाएगी, हीरोइन मिलेगी। अब 80-20 है हीरोइन ओपियम। आज से 25 साल पहले इसका उल्टा था, सारे इंडिया में प्रोहिबिशन है जिन स्टेट्स में, बिहार में और गुजरात में। आप वहाँ के लोगों से पूछ लीजिए, वहाँ बियर नहीं मिलती, विस्की मिल जाती है, वोदका मिल जाती है, क्योंकि बियर के ट्रक लाने को ज़्यादा मुश्किल है, विस्की की वैन लाना ज़्यादा है। So it is not a wise thing to cut down suddenly NDPS Act itself.
For NDPS Act, like there was a total ban by USA on there was a war on drugs by US and there was a total ban, but it led to increase in the substance use in the people. And also I want to ask, like, how did the NDPS Act change the situation in Punjab? Like, what I have read is like every vehicle was being stopped and checking was being done, and even carrying the drug was like people were being jailed and lot of expenditure was spent on that. And what can be done? Like,
see, you're right. Like all problems, the problems of addiction also started from America. Like all global problems, they are the ones who started this war on addiction. Why did they ban opium, cannabis, and cocaine plants, products, and left alcohol and tobacco? क्योंकि अल्कोहल टोबैको की इंडस्ट्री से एम्पायर चलती है, उनको बैन कर ही नहीं सकते। हालांकि दे आर मोर हार्मफुल। Certainly alcohol, there has been a scoring done, which drug is more harmful to society as a whole, to individual and to others, etc. So, उसमें alcohol number 1 है, heroin number 2, the society as a whole. But alcohol is legal and heroin is illegal. Number 1 it is legal, number 2 is illegal. Cannabis or tobacco में, tobacco ज़्यादा है, but tobacco is legal, cannabis is illegal. So actually it doesn't make any sense. You were asking about also.
Like NDPS Act, when they started stopping the vehicles and putting people in the jail, and that created a lot of ruckus at that time.
See, this happened actually in 2014. All the politicians, when the elections are due and they come to ask for votes, one of the things they say is that हम addictions को 15 दिन में नहीं तो 20 दिन में तो खत्म कर ही दें. Not realizing that addictions cannot be rooted out because the roots of addiction they lie in the human brain. So नहीं होता है. तो 2014 में भी ऐसा हुआ और उस वक्त अकाली गवर्नमेंट थी और हुआ ये कि वेरी इम्पोर्टेंट बीजेपी कैंडिडेट जो अमृतसर से लड़े थे और दिल्ली के रहने वाले थे, बाद में फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर बने थे, वो हार गए. अकाली गवर्नमेंट स्टेट में थी. तो लोगों ने ये कहा था कि परसेप्शन ये है कि अकाली गवर्नमेंट खुद स्मगलिंग करवा रही है. So they got very, irritated about it, and they started arresting young boys left, right, and center, scooter को रोक के लाइनें लगा के. There is a very center of legal policy. उन्होंने वो सारा डॉक्यूमेंट किया. Thousands of boys. The jails become full. Even now today, 40% of all jails in the India are filled with peddlers. So yes, that was at that time.
And as you said, like intoxicant increases when there is a ban.
Yes, the strength of the intoxicant.
Strength of the intoxicant, because maybe there is smuggling or there is some mixing of the drugs. So how can we prevent that overdosage deaths? So there might be increased chances of the overdosage with that intoxicant increase.
Overdosage deaths के दो main कारण होते हैं. एक तो कि unpredictability of the quality. जो वहाँ से अफगानिस्तान से चलती है वो रास्ते से कई हाथों से निकल के आती है हेरोइन. और जहाँ भी वो किसी के हाथ में आती है the tendency is to dilute it. अब वो dilute जब करते हैं तो कंज्यूमर के पास जब कंज्यूमर प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट तो है नहीं क्योंकि लीगल है. तो जो एडिक्ट लेता है हेरोइन वो suppose he used to 20% quality. अब बाई चांस तो बीच में एक शरीफ आदमी उस चेन में था तो उसको आज 35% वाली मिली है. He'll die because addicts are not looking for a higher level of intoxication. They are looking for the same level. And in this is unpredictable quality, which is because the drug is illegal, is one cause of overdose. Otherwise, pure heroin doesn't kill unless you take overdose. There's no other way of one person dying. The second very interesting, cause is that the patients who are treated, who are successfully detoxified and who complete detoxification, they have more chances of dying of overdose. There was a very important study. I think it's so important that we see quickly. Just take a look. In a 2003 study, titled Loss of Tolerance and Overdose Mortality After Inpatient Detoxification. Can you use the mic? Sorry. In a 2003 study titled Loss of Tolerance and Overdose Mortality After Inpatient Opiate Detoxification, published in the British Medical Journal, the authors concluded patients who successfully completed inpatient detoxification were more likely than other patients to have died within 1 year of an overdose. Patients who failed to complete detoxification, then the patients failed to complete detoxification. So it is actually very counterintuitive. The clustering of the deaths from overdoses in the group of patients who had successfully completed treatment is counterintuitive and illogical unless it derives from loss of tolerance and consequent unpredictability of resumed heroin use. A similar increase in mortality among released prisoners who were formerly opiate addicts has been attributed to loss of tolerance and erroneous judgment of the dose. See, what happens is, जब हम patients को treat करते हैं, the whole idea is so optimistic and artificial and glamorous कि आप तुम इलाज करा रहे हो, बड़ा अच्छा कर रहे हो, बड़ी अच्छा इलाज है, इसके बाद ये बंद कर दो. Totally ignoring the fact that the relapses are a factor. We don't even talk about it. अगर तुम्हारा जी करे, अगर लो, क्योंकि हमें लगता है कि सारी बात तो इस बात की हो रही है कि नहीं लेना. आप इसमें, this is just like जो first year resident होते हैं ना, वो patient से suicidal ideas के बारे में नहीं पूछते, वो कतराते हैं कि इसके दिमाग में आ जाएगा तो फिर नहीं करनी होगी तो करें. So by the same illogical logic, the treating team does not talk to a patient about the possibility of it. In which case, the chances of overdoses. So unpredictable quality and this, not talking about the relapse. और स्टेट का रिस्पांस क्या होता है? पंजाब स्टेट ने क्या किया देखिए, दो चीजें करी कि अखबार में आने लग गया कि वहाँ ओवरडोज टूटी, वहाँ होगी, वहाँ होगी. एकदम से 10-12 दिन में कई सब. उन्होंने दो काम किए. पहली बात तो डिप्टी कमिश्नर ने ऑर्डर इशू किया कि सिरिंजेस को बैन कर, किसी को भी सिरिंज नहीं मिले जब तक डॉक्टर ने प्रिस्क्रिप्शन. Now this is almost ridiculous because this is actually pushing patients to use used syringes or share syringes or go to the garbage heaps and get syringes. Fortunately, they woke up. There was a big problem all over the country. The second response of the state was कि जो भी जिसकी ओवरडोज डेथ हुई है लड़के की, उसके साथ उस वक्त जो 2-3 और ले रहे थे उसके दोस्त, उनको अरेस्ट करके they will be prosecuted for culpable homicide, which is manslaughter, which is a 10-year sentence. तो जो पहले होता था कि इसको ये हमारे इसमें टिकट लगाया है हमारे साथ ही, अब ये ठीक नहीं लग रहा, इसको हॉस्पिटल लेके चलते, वो हॉस्पिटल ले जाना उन्होंने बंद कर, उसको छोड़ के भाग. So you ask me the reasons for writing book, such are the reasons why people should write.
So like there have been different policies of various countries, like in US there was a complete ban, in Portuguese they started assisted programs. So what should be the policy of a country to manage addictions, whether it should be completely banning it, decriminalizing it, or starting the maintenance therapy, substitution therapy? What is a better way to deal with addictions?
Drug should be liberalized. There is no doubt, there is no way out of it. It's not that it is my preference or somebody else's preference. This is simple 2 + 2 4 logic. Because what else do we have? Addictions are not going anywhere. So drugs should be liberalized. The milder drugs should be more liberalized. When one says liberalized, nobody is saying that it is a libertine, world, go, drink, smoke, inject, whatever you want. Not at all. The milder drugs, you know what? 21 states of America and Washington DC, parts of Australia, almost whole of Canada, Uruguay, Portugal, Holland, and many other countries, they have legalized weed. It is available in stores. And we are thinking of even more harsher ways to put people in jail. You know what? An analogy comes to my mind about the way we treated homosexuality. What happened was, अंग्रेज आए, इंडिया में पहले illegal नहीं होता था homosexuality. It was not accepted, of course, but it was not a crime. But the Britishers, with their Christian values, they thought it should be a crime, and they made it. क्राइम इन इंडिया, वो वापस चले गए 47 में, थोड़े सालों बाद उन्होंने जाके वहाँ वो अपना ठीक कर लिया, एंड वी केप्ट ऑन कैरिंग दैट बर्डन. Same way, the West is already liberalized. Half the world is liberalized. And we will be probably do it whenever.
Also, like, what is the state of de-addiction centers in Punjab, as you have visited many, and in this book you have mentioned one case, there was such a condition कि बाहर एक बोर्ड लगा हुआ था, अपना सियाना दिमाग बाहर रख के आए, कि सोचे समझे ना. So what was the state of de-addiction centers despite having NDPS Act?
ऐसा था, वो शुरू में जब भी de-addiction centers शुरू हुए थे, so they were started by, they were called rehab centers, but they were hardly that. They were started by so-called ex-addicts. वो अपने आप को प्रोजेक्ट कर देते हैं, एडवर्टाइज कर देते हैं कि हम एक्स एडिक्ट हैं, तो पेरेंट्स को लगता था देखो इसने पहले नशा किया हुआ, अब छोड़ो, इसको एक्चुअली पता है कि क्या होता है, इसको एम्पैथी होगी, तो दे वर वेरी पॉपुलर. नाउ दिस इज क्वाइट अनदर थिंग कि वो एक्स एडिक्ट भी नहीं होते थे, दैट वाज जस्ट अ मार्केटिंग थिंग. सो बट दे प्रोफेस्ड, देयर अप्रोच वाज सो कॉल्ड टफ लव, कि सख्ती के साथ करना. तो जब मैं मेंटल हेल्थ पॉलिसी ग्रुप में था, तो there was a team which went to look at rehab centers in Punjab. One of those rehab centers, वार्ड के बाहर एक बड़ा सारा बोर्ड लगा हुआ था, शू रैक के पास ऊपर, कि अपना सियाना दिमाग बाहर शू रैक में रख कर आइए. Which implies that the patient himself doesn't have any agency at all. उसकी कोई रोल नहीं है, उसका क्या राय है, इलाज कैसे होना चाहिए. और we actually continue doing the same. वो लिखते नहीं हैं, बात तो वही है that it is a top down treatment.
Till now, we have seen like many psychiatrists from all parts of India come to Punjab to start de-addiction centers. And what is the reason behind that and the situation?
See, Punjab has, actually it is a very strange situation. पंजाब में मेरा ख्याल है कि कोई 300 psychiatrists होंगे, इतने होंगे समझे. लेकिन उन 250-300 में से जो पंजाब के mental patients, psychiatric patients, not addiction patients, and if they don't have a license, they are not allowed to treat it. तो फिर गैप हो गया, जरूरत है de-addiction center में, तो फिर बात से आना पड़ता. It's not that Punjab is short of psychiatrists. Punjab isn't short of psychiatrists. Are not allowed to treat addiction. So जो de-addiction centers, they are run, some business also they have started during them. एक business house के 10-20 हैं, तो वो उनको चाहिए होते हैं, तो वो बाहर से.
And how can the country and policy makers be more liberal? There can be liberalization of like drug treatment as you do.
See, I am firmly convinced कि जो 85 से पहले था, वो कोई बुरी सिचुएशन नहीं थी, वो बहुत अच्छी थी. Opium husk should be liberalized. It should be available in schools. Weed should be liberalized. What is called marijuana. It should be available in schools. देखिए स्टोर का जो गवर्नमेंट जैसे अल्कोहल मिलता है, not freely like tobacco, but some regulation, not off the shelf, but some quantity. उससे ये होगा गवर्नमेंट THC कंटेंट भी रेगुलेट कर सकती है, इस THC कंटेंट से ज़्यादा का नहीं देना. जैसे अल्कोहल, the people who are taking drugs, that should be decriminalized. People who are found with small quantities for personal use, या एक 3 लोगों को अपने दोस्तों के लिए लेके आया है, उसके लिए कोई 5-6 ग्राम है, तो 30 भी एक्चुअली ऐसा होता है बहुत कंट्रीज. पोर्चुगल में होता है कि अगर आपके nobody searches you first of all, और अगर आप पार्क में झगड़ा कर रहे हैं, आपकी जेब में से निकल आई है, तो send you to a social worker whose only job is to find out कि ये एडिक्शन है कि नहीं. एडिक्शन है तो उसको कहते हैं चलो वहाँ जाकर ट्रीटमेंट करो, नहीं है, और एडिक्शन नहीं है तो उसको वार्निंग देके वो छोड़ देते हैं, और साथ में उसको सेफ्टी के डोंट शेयर थिंग्स लाइक दैट एडवाइस देके छोड़ देते हैं. हमने जेल्स भरी हुई हैं, but most of these jail inmates they are small time. So एक तो वो jails decongest होंगे, thousands of crores of rupees will be saved, and that can be diverted to treatment. So liberalization of monetary intoxicants like weed, like populace, is the core of the day. And अगर हमें बहुत हिम्मत है तो वैसे करें जैसे स्विट्जरलैंड ने किया कि अब पंजाब में 88,000 इंजेक्टेबल एडिक्ट्स हैं, दिल्ली में भी इतनी है, हरियाणा में थोड़ी सी, उनमें से हाफ ऑफ देम हैव हेपेटाइटिस। तो उन्होंने जो किया है, स्विट्जरलैंड started a needle park, उसमें there is an area which is called a needle park, तो वहाँ under medical supervision heroin है। There are always people जिनका आप बुप्रेनॉर्फिन से नहीं ठीक होंगे, वो उनको रिलैप्स होगा, तो pure heroin doesn't kill unless overdose. So under medical supervision उनको बुला के heroin देते हैं, वो दिन में 2 बार आते हैं, so at least you save people from dying of hepatitis C and HIV, if not anything else.
Actually, we can go on this topic. And in this book, he has also mentioned many things about the nature of addictions, which we have not talked much. A bit of time, I will request sir to give a message to the audience regarding how to tackle addictions better.
See, nature of addiction, I'll just say, a couple of sentences. All of you know that Islamic country, there are 40 Islamic countries in the world. 40 के 40 में prohibition है, शराब नहीं मिलती, तो बड़ी अच्छी बात है। और इसका क्या total quantum of addiction वहाँ कम हुआ है। Pakistan has been categorized as one of the worst countries as far as heroin addiction. So the total quantum of addiction remains the same. Addiction is like a soft balloon filled with water. उसको यहाँ से press करो तो उधर से वो it comes up like as a bump. So the total quantum of addiction, since it cannot be reduced, societies do not get to abolish addiction or reduce addiction. Societies get to choose their intoxicants, and they should choose wisely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And if any mistakes were from my part, then I take the part. Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. One request I would like my book to be signed by you.
Sir, to felicitate Dr. Alinda and A.K. Kala sir with mementos.
Dr. Kala was to speak excellently, there was no doubt about it. Dr. Alinda, you did a marvelous job.
Wait, sir, wait. Okay, sir. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful session. I would now like to call upon the stage coordinators for the next session. Dr. V.D. Singh and Dr. D.P. Patil, sir. Taken by Dr. Shiv Gautam, sir. On the topic dual diagnosis from evolution of concept to current clinical practice. I would also like to call chairpersons of the session. Dr. S.K. Khandelwal sir, Dr. Junzar Ali sir.
सर आप भी हो जाइए इधर सर कैमरे ओके सर
किससे भी पूछना है क्या यार कितना इंतजार कर रहा है तुम
Actually, I read the document and नहीं देखा when you told about it.
टोटल जल्दी
Very nice.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to introduce next chairperson for the session of dual diagnosis from evolution of concept to current clinical practice. It's an honor and pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Juzair Ali sir. He is an MD from SMS Medical College. He has experience of huge experience of 30 years in clinical psychiatry practices, and he has published many research papers in reputed journals. Currently, he is the president of Indian Psychiatric Society, Rajasthan chapter. And I also introduce you to the Dr. Sudhir. Sorry. I also introduced Dr. Sudhir Khandelwal sir, he's a person who needs no introduction and in the field of psychiatry. He's the senior consultant, psychiatrist at Family Hospital, New Delhi, and he's formerly professor and head of the department of psychiatry in AIIMS Delhi. He also has national and international research and publication to his credit. So I welcome both the chairpersons to come to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like our chairpersons to introduce Dr. Shiv Gautam sir, the speaker of the session.
I welcome.
Hello. So finally, Professor Shiv Gautam has made his appearance. We have been waiting for you, Shiv Chief, since morning, and to introduce you, though you do not need any introduction for Rajasthan and for that matter India, but I give that honor to Dr. Ali. Dr. Shiv Gautam has been his teacher, and it's an honor to meet him.
It's my privilege and honor, sir. Stay, sir. Please. मैं ज़्यादा देर में नहीं बोलूँगा. आप लोग सब सारे ही जानते हैं इनको अच्छी तरीके से. गुरुओं के गुरु और टीचर्स एंड टीचर्स. Sir, thank you very much.
Well, at the outset, I would like to thank my dears Roop, Sidana and Rajiv Agarwal for kindly asking me to talk on the concept of the theme of the CME program. When Rajiv called me, sir, what topic you will talk? I said, you allot the topic and I will talk. He said, the theme is dual diagnosis. So I thought, why not talk on dual diagnosis from evolution of concept to current practice. My dear friend Sudhir and my dear student user, and I am so happy that both of you are chairing this session. This particular session is not meant for very senior people sitting here, because they have themselves been witness to the evolution of concept of dual diagnosis. It is meant primarily for postgraduates who have been listening. So, I have to make two changes. We start from classification. Slides I will talk on the basic concepts. What constitutes a good classification of psychiatric disorders? And the main themes which are guiding classification are reliability of the classification, which may be from interrelated reliability or reliability from time to time change. Validity, whether we are really diagnosing that. Utility of the diagnosis, not in a particular geographical area, but utility across the culture and across countries. Each to use, how easily we can use the diagnostic classification system. Applicability across settings and cultures, and which meets the needs of the various users. For example, clinicians, researchers, users, mental health services. Now, there are some problems which are unique to classifying the psychiatric disorders, in contrast to other branches of medicine. It relies on patients' own objective report of symptoms and doctor's observation of patient's behavior to arrive at a diagnosis. Secondly, psychiatry lacks objective for sorting out the psychiatric disorders. Psychiatric disorders are manifested by quantitative deviation in behavior, ideation and emotion from a normative concept, and it's difficult to define normal human behavior. And psychiatric symptoms are highly non-specific and quite unstable. What is the importance of clearly defining a psychiatric disorder? It influences the estimates of psychiatric disorders in the community and allocation of taxpayers' money to manage them. As Dr. Kala was talking, that if we change our policies, how much amount of time it saves to the exchequer and to the policymakers, that makes a difference. And lack of a clear conceptual definition can contribute to abuse of psychiatric diagnosis as a means of controlling or stigmatizing socially understandable behavior. So, the importance has its potential legal implications in criminal cases and in awarding disability benefits. Lack of proper definition of a psychiatric disorder reduces confidence in our discipline among the colleagues and the general public. Dual diagnosis. It was first identified in 1980s among the individuals with coexisting severe mental illness and substance abuse disorders together. People who had substance abuse disorder and people who also had mental illness, they were diagnosed as dual diagnosis, and from there the concept started. Currently, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration uses the term co-occurring disorders to refer to the often mentioned current diagnosis. Both a substance problem and a mental health issue such as depression, bipolar disorder or anxiety, when occurs simultaneously, it is co-occurring disorder or dual diagnosis. Dealing with substance abuse, alcoholism or drug addiction is never easy. I am sure we have been discussing since morning that it is a recurring problem, and it's even more difficult while also struggling with mental health problems. In co-occurring disorders, both the mental health issues and the drug and alcohol addiction have their own unique symptoms that influence function, maintain a stable home life, or handles life's difficulties and other related issues. To make a situation more complicated, the co-occurring psychiatric disorders also affect each other. For example, if the patient has anxiety and depression, he tends to abuse the drugs more. And the people who abuse alcohol and abuse various drugs, they also have increased associated anxiety or depression. So when a mental health problem goes untreated, the substance abuse problem usually gets worse. And when alcohol or drug abuse increases, mental health problems usually. Question is, what comes first? Is it the substance or the mental health problem? Substance abuse and mental health disorders such as depression and anxiety are closely linked, although one doesn't necessarily directly cause the other. Abusing substances such as marijuana or methamphetamine can cause prolonged psychotic reactions, while alcohol can make depression and anxiety symptoms worse. People abuse alcohol or drugs to ease the symptoms of undiagnosed mental disorder, to cope with the difficult emotions, or to temporarily change their mood. Unfortunately, self-medicating with other drugs or alcohol causes side effects and in the long term often worsens the symptoms they initially help to relieve. People with anxiety start taking over the counter drugs and gradually they become dependent on them. There is some evidence that those who abuse opioid or painkillers are at greater risk of depression, and heavy cannabis use has been linked to an increased risk for schizophrenia. Invariably, we find that people who are using cannabis, they develop increase. If they are already schizophrenics, they have increased in the schizophrenic psychopathology, and if some of them develop cannabis-induced schizophrenic-like symptoms. Under these circumstances, the question of liberalizing the use is a question mark. And it's a debatable question. I was listening to Professor Kala at the end of his talk. And should we really legalize? Should we really liberalize? This question, I think I am in psychiatric field for last 50 years now. It was precisely 1974 that I joined psychiatry, and it's going to be 50 years end of this year. I have seen that cannabis has not done anything good to anyone. Well, debate will continue over a period of time. And if we have to learn lessons from Western countries, okay. If we have to learn lessons from this country, Vijaya or Bhang has been abused for a long time in this country, and it was for medicinal use rather than for drug use. Substance abuse may sharply increase. The symptoms of mental illness or even trigger the new symptoms. Abuse of alcohol or drugs can interact with medication such as antidepressants, anxiety medication, mood stabilizers, making them less effective at managing symptoms or delaying recovery. There is evidence base which tells us that even if you use nicotine, your effect of antipsychotics and antidepressants, it comes down. So we have to be very careful in advising people and considering the question of moderating the dose. How do we moderate the dose? बेटा जिनको खाना खाना है वो चुपचाप चले जाओ, आपस में बात नहीं करो, और जिन्होंने ले लिया है वो नहीं बैठकर चुपचाप खाओ, because that will help others to have their concentration better. So moderation of dose of permissible drugs is again a debatable question. Why do these disorders often co-occur? Research suggests that the following possibilities for the common occurrence. Number one, overlapping genetic vulnerabilities. Predisposing genetic factors may make a person susceptible to both addiction and other mental disorders to have a greater risk of second disorder once the first appears. Secondly, overlapping environmental triggers. For example, stress, trauma, physical or sexual abuse, and early exposure to drugs are common environmental factors that can influence the development of addiction and other mental illnesses. Is dual diagnosis only with abuse and mental disorders? That is another question. Dual diagnosis is when two diseases co-occur. Is comorbidity with physical disorders a dual diagnosis? Earlier, I remember in late 70s and 80s, we had the axis diagnosis process. Axis 1, axis 2, axis 3 and axis 4. The term when Sidana and Rajiv were students, I'm sure you will recall the axis diagnosis system. The term dual diagnosis describes a situation where a person has both a developmental disability and mental health problem as well. The term developmental disability is used when a person has significant limitation in cognitive functioning, intellectual capacity to reason, organize, plan, make judgments, and identify consequences. And adaptive functioning, for example, capacity to gain personal independence, based on the person's ability to learn and apply conceptual social practice skills for everyday life. What does it mean? This covers people who suffer from low intellectual ability, as well as people who suffer from dementia and late onset. So people who have dementia in the late age, and people who have depression with dementia, people who have dementia with psychotic features, is that not a dual diagnosis? That is another thing, but most of the time when we talk about dual diagnosis, it is used with reference to substance abuse disorder. Other than substance use disorder, developmental disability is an umbrella. The term for different disabilities for some genetic origins such as Down syndrome and Fragile X syndrome. They can be caused by illness or injury prenatally during childhood, as is the case with the congenital rubella, fetal alcohol syndrome and meningitis. Sometimes the cause is unknown, for example, with autism spectrum disorder. These limitations originate before the person reaches 18 years of age, and they are likely lifelong in nature and affect areas of major life activity such as personal care, language skills and learning abilities. So, what are the signs and symptoms? Because of the overlap between mental health problems and the developmental disabilities, it is often difficult to tell whether behaviors are related to medical, environmental, emotional or psychiatric issues, or some combination of these factors. There are steps that clinicians can take to better understand how biological, psychological, and social factors can affect the personal mental health of the individual. So, how do we evaluate? Is it a medical problem? Many people with developmental disabilities have a physical health concern that can go unnoticed or undertreated. A full physical examination, regular vision, hearing tests, dental checkup to identify these problems may be required. If there is a problem with support and appropriate expectations, the support a person is receiving or not receiving influences his behavior as well. And that is an environmental issue. And if they are unable to do things that are meaningful for them or expect them, they may become anxious or angry. Is there an emotional problem? We have to carefully evaluate them. And is there a full-blown psychiatric disorder? I don't have to tell this audience how to evaluate this. Coming to the cause and risk factors of dual diagnosis, the relationship between developmental disabilities and mental health problems is complex. Various biological, psychological, and social factors make it more likely that a person with a developmental disability will develop a mental health problem. For example, someone who is Fragile X syndrome is at risk of developing social anxiety, and someone with 22q11 deletion is at increased risk of developing schizophrenia. There is one reason why it is very important to know the cause of a person's developmental disability. The other risk factors, common risk factors, can contribute to both substance use disorder and other mental disorders. So when the question comes of dual diagnosis, may it be with substance abuse disorder, may it be with intellectual dysfunction and the psychiatric disorder, we have to look for all the common risk factors. And other mental disorders can run in families, meaning that certain genes may be a risk factor as well. Environmental factors such as stress or trauma can cause genetic changes and that are passed down through the generations and may contribute to the development of a mental disorder or substance abuse disorder. Well, PTSD is another category of illness. Studies found that people with mental disorder such as anxiety, depression, or post-traumatic stress disorder may use drugs or alcohol as a form of self-medication. However, although some drugs may temporarily help with some symptoms of mental disorder, they may make the symptoms worse over a period of time. Additionally, brain changes in people with mental disorders. What we call as functional. I don't agree with the term functional, but what has been popular as the term. The mental disorders and the brain changes may enhance the rewarding effects of substances, making it more likely they will continue to use the substance. Substance use and substance use disorders can contribute to the development of other mental disorders through these risk factors, and substance use may trigger changes in brain structure and function to make a person more likely to develop mental disorder. Coming to the diagnosis and treatment, there is no single correct intervention for people who have dual diagnosis. Treatment plans should be customized to address each client in a particular need. The plan should include identification of the problem, outline short-term and long-term goals. What is the short-term requirement is to control whether substance abuse or the other side of the story. Then establish approaches and interventions to meet the goals. In many cases, treatment includes helping people with employment, housing, finance, leisure, activities, and basic daily self-care. Nimesh is doing these days all these activities. I come to understand that. And all these activities are very important for not only diagnosis and treatment, but proper rehabilitation of these people. The professional conducting the assessment may recommend that the person with dual diagnosis see a therapist or start taking medication. And sometimes the treatment may include helping families and caregivers adjust support and expectation for the person with dual diagnosis. When a person is diagnosed with a psychiatric disorders like mood disorder, anxiety or schizophrenia or ADHD, medication is often one component of overall treatment plan, but it is not always possible to match the symptoms or behaviors of someone with dual diagnosis of a specific psychiatric disorder. The symptoms get modified in people who use substance. Medication may be a part of the treatment for challenging behavior when the underlying psychiatric disorder is uncertain or unknown. In these situations, it is very important to know that the medication is targeting, what the medication is targeting, what the behavior looks like before intervention, and how it changes with medication, the observation of the patient. Now coming to the therapeutic techniques. I'm not into the details, they are all available in your textbooks. The behavior therapies including cognitive behavior therapy, dialectic behavior therapy, assertive community treatment, therapeutic communities, contingency management, and behavior therapies for children and adolescents, brief strategic family therapies, multidimensional therapy and multi-systemic therapy. These are various techniques which have been used. Medication. There are effective medications that can treat opiate, alcohol, nicotine addiction, and lessen the symptoms of many other mental disorders. Some medication may be useful in treating multiple disorders. So when someone comes with substance use disorder and another mental health disorder, it is usually better to treat them at the same time rather than separately. People who need help for SUD and other mental disorders should see a healthcare provider for each disorder. It is very unfortunate that the legislation has divided separate legislation for treatment of SUD and separate legislation for mental health problems. It is one individual who is called psychiatrist is eligible to treat both. So why two therapists? However, it's a system which needs to change, needs to modify. It can be challenging to make an accurate diagnosis because some symptoms are the same for both disorders. So the providers should use comprehensive assessment tools to reduce the chance of misdiagnosis and provide the right management. It is also essential that the provider should tailor the treatment, which may include behavioral therapies, medication to an individual's specific combination of disorders and symptoms, and it should also take into account the person's age, misuse substance, and the specific mental disorder. The best treatment for co-occurring disorders is integrated approach, when both the substance abuse problems and the mental disorders are treated simultaneously, and both disorders by same treatment provider or team should treat depending on the specific issue. Treatment of mental health problem may include medication, self-help groups, measures, lifestyle changes, and peer support, which we are all doing. The treatment of substance abuse includes detoxification, managing of withdrawal symptoms, behavior therapy, and support groups like Alcoholics Anonymous, etc. So, in the total treatment program of dual diagnosis, there is always a hope. Both mood disorders and alcohol and drug abuse problems are treatable conditions. It is important to get and stay sober during the treatment. Relapses are a part of the recovery process. Slips and setbacks happen, but with hard work, most people can recover from their relapses and move on with the recovery. Peer support can help. Alcoholic Anonymous, Narcotic Anonymous give a chance to lean on others who know exactly what is going through and learn from the experiences. Now, another issue which has been dealt in dual diagnosis is the military veterans, where PTSD has been a dual diagnosis with substance abuse disorders. So we have to manage emotions. People have to keep connected with each other. They have to make healthy lifestyle changes, find new meaning in life, and find alternative pleasure-seeking behavior. People who advocate moderate dose of cannabis. Again, I am a contender to this particular concept. Can't we find alternative pleasure-seeking behavior? Then giving cannabis in moderation. Then giving opium husk in moderation. We did this experiment in Rajasthan. There is a total ban on cannabis. Total ban. Even opium husk is not available. And we have started several groups of people who have alternative pleasure-seeking methods like play groups, yoga groups, meditation groups, and other methods of enhancing pleasure-seeking behavior, which can substitute the cannabis in moderation or whatever you call it. In Rajasthan, it is a desert area, you all know, and a small half a bigha, that is about 1600 to 2000 meters of land, is converted into a green area which is called bagichis. And these bagichis provide recreation to people in the evening. And they are the source of enhancing at least cannabis addiction in most of the rural areas. शाम को भांग उठती है, बगीची जाते हैं, वहाँ पीते हैं, रिक्रिएट करते हैं, शाम को आते हैं वापस. अल्कोहल की तो स्मेल भी आती है, लेकिन भांग की तो स्मेल भी नहीं आती. और घर वालों को पता भी नहीं चलता. Another social acceptance which is there in Rajasthan, particularly I have seen, is of opium. It may be birth, it may be death, it may be marriage, or it may be any other auspicious occasion. मनुहार तो होती है, और वो मनुहार होती है अफीम के पानी के साथ. एक बहुत बड़े आदमी उलझ गए थे उस मनुहार के चक्कर में. कोई 2 दशक पहले आप लोगों को याद होगा, it was a big issue with the ex-defense minister of the country, where Manohar was done with opium. He is no more, but yadein to rehti hai. So that is another way of social acceptance. In Gujarat, when a boy or girl turns 18 years, some of the affluent families, I don't know whether Nimesh agree with me or not, he is a Hindu fellow. However, it is celebrated with opening of a bottle of whiskey. हमारा बेटा अब 18 से बड़ा हो गया है, let us celebrate it, and this celebration is whiskey. Is it not a social acceptance to alcohol? These are some of the social acceptance methods where society is promoting the addiction, and we have to be very careful. Mental health disorders and substance use disorders, both are brain disorders. If not possible to prevent them, it is possible to reduce the risk by learning about biological family history, environmental manipulation, removing socio-cultural sanction to the drug behavior. What I have described just now is the socio-cultural sanction to drugs behavior, and we have to be very, very careful. आप कहेंगे साहब मैं तो साइकियाट्रिस्ट हूँ, मर जाएगा तो इलाज कर दूंगा. You are at a stage where you have to be leaders in the society as well. You have to be movers. In 1981, me, Dr. Devraj Purohit and Narayan Singh Manakla, who later got Padma Shri, and we were government servants, so we were deprived of this particular reward. Anyway, and he was also a member of Rajasthan because of his work on de-addiction. We started working together. In 1981, in my first camp, community camp, which I organized in Jaipur, it was a big news. जयपुर में भी स्मैक और 3 स्मैक पाए गए पत्रिका के फ्रंट पेज पर. How many smack users are in Jaipur now? 50,000 to 1 lakh, and it is not in news. It is not in news. Police knows it, people know it. There was a very adventurous police officer who was working with me. He was an additional SP. He used to bring, it was 85, 86, or maybe early 90s, M.N. Dinesh, who is currently additional DG police. 10-10 के बैच में उस बैच को पकड़ के रामगंज के मोहल्ले से लाया करते थे और हम उनका डिटॉक्स करके डी एडिक्शन करके भेज देते वापस. It was a social movement. Why did we do it then? Why should you not do it now? These are some of the questions which younger generation has to answer to themselves. We have to make it a social movement to say no to drugs. Saying no to alcohol, limiting amount of alcohol consumed. What is the day of the year when you have maximum alcohol consumption? New Year Day, 31st of December. And in Rajasthan, we have started a movement. नया साल मनाए दारू नहीं दूध के साथ. We distribute at least few thousand liters of milk on that evening, where people from Kachi Bastis come and drink milk rather than alcohol. We have to make de-addiction a movement in the society, saying no to alcohol and limiting the amount of alcohol consumed, talking to healthcare provider and finding healthy ways of pleasure seeking. I don't say that what I have enumerated are the only ways of pleasure seeking. There can be many. Many of you can invent alternative methods of pleasure seeking, substitute them, those behavioral methods, and reduce alcoholism or any other drug abuse. I put a question mark because I don't have, doesn't matter. I'm at the fag end of my talk. I put a, can you at the end of,
Yes, sir.
can you hear me at the end? Okay. मैं तो गांव का आदमी हूँ. ICD-11. Those of you who have studied, what is the status of dual diagnosis? I did not find it. The latest version of DSM, it doesn't say anything. And what is not available in ICD-11 or what is not available in DSM latest edition useful to us because we follow the Western methods of diagnosis. We have to evolve our own system of diagnosis and add to ICD. I have been a part of the population survey of the ICD-9 and ICD-10. Why not in ICD-11? And DSM latest editions when we talk. Why not all of you who are the future of psychiatry in India stand up and say, this is what is not relevant to me, and make a voice against this. So as far as the ICD-11 is concerned, I went through it and I did not find anything about the dual diagnosis. I looked at many references which I have marked in red. They are the ones which attracted me more. And dual diagnosis is all a status, is all about the work which has been conducted from 1986 to 2007. After 2007, there is very little research work. on this area. And those of you who are here can take up work and say whether it is relevant to us or not relevant to us. Even not relevant to us is very important, because in research, if you disprove something, is also very important. It is as important as you prove. And last word, which I always say in all my lectures, in science, more you know, more you get to know that you do not know. In science, more you know, more you search, more you learn that you do not know many things. And many concepts are relevant today were not relevant when we were studying in MD way back in the days. कल फिर आएंगे नगमों की खिलती कलियां सुनने वाले, हमसे बेहतर कहने वाले, तुमसे बेहतर सुनने वाले. People will come. It is a process of evolution, and all of us should jointly use the wisdom of people sitting here, worked in WHO, worked in apex institutions of the country, working in the apex institutions of the country now. I can see many good faces here. Use that wisdom, add to that wisdom, and go ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Shiv Gautam, for giving a very energetic and lively presentation on dual diagnosis. The importance of topic you have highlighted, I don't have to add anything from my side. Doctor.
Question and answer. There is a small session of question and answer, and best question will get an award.
So postgraduates to start with.
Only PT.
बड़े लोगों के सवालों से मैं डरता हूँ.
Only PT best.
बड़े लोगों के सवालों से
Only PT.
बड़े लोगों के सवालों से मैं डरता हूँ भैया. Only postgraduates who are students of my students here. And I'm so happy to have met them today. Yes. सवाल पूछो बेटा. जजेस उधर हैं, मैं उनकी तरफ एड्रेस करो पहले.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I wanted to ask, can we include personality disorder also as a diagnosis in the dual diagnosis?
Well, personality disorder does not find a place as such in dual diagnosis, but some people do include the borderline personality syndrome, borderline personality as one of the diagnoses. Some people have included in their research schizoid personality disorder also in the dual diagnosis. But the references which I scanned particularly for this particular presentation, I did not find many personality disorders being included in dual diagnosis. That is my answer. Yes. हाँ, और सवाल पूछो बेटा, वरना कंपटीशन नहीं होगा. अरे आपके हाथ में माइक आया, सवाल पूछो. And also introduce yourself and the institution where you come from.
Sir, myself Mahendra Kumar from SMS Medical College.
My ex-12 department. Good. पूछो. और तुम कहाँ से हो बेटा? निम्स से. Okay, निम्स जयपुर. हाँ.
Sir, behavioral and psychological symptoms due to substance use. तो सर अगर वो symptoms है तो अपन को पहले substance use को treat करना है या फिर?
Treat them together. तुमने ध्यान से नहीं सुना.
हाँ सर, वो भी मैं पूछना चाहता हूँ.
You have to treat them together. You have to treat the behavioral and psychological symptoms as well as the clinical symptoms of depression, anxiety or schizophrenia, early schizophrenia, whatever they are.
सर अगर ऐसा बोलते हैं कि symptoms अगर 2 weeks के बाद persist करते हैं तो अपन उसके लिए मैनेज करेंगे. तो पहले तो खाली substance को मैनेज करना है.
क्यों? Why do you want to make this person suffer from delirium with psychosis for 2 weeks? आप low dose में शुरू कीजिए. Treat it. If you want to be sure that it was only, and as such the behavioral symptoms, you do use low doses of antipsychotics. वरना कैसे इलाज करते हो? खाली साइकोथेरेपी से तो डिलीरियम का पेशेंट ठीक नहीं होगा. एसोसिएटेड बिहेवियरल प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, साइकोसिस है उसको, तो आप क्या करेंगे? लो डोज एंटीसाइकोटिक देंगे या बेंजोडाइजेपिन्स देंगे, isn't it? So you are doing it already. If the symptoms persist longer and they are to the psychotic proportion, you have to increase the dose and treat the patient. भाई साहब, अरे ऐसे मत करो यार, इन्होंने प्राइस अनाउंस कर रखा है। हाँ
नहीं, 2 में से हो जाएगा।
हैं?
2 में से हो जाएगा।
2 में से हो जाएगा। कितने प्राइस दोगे? 2 दोगे, 1 दोगे? फिर तो 50% तो जीत गए। हाँ, yes.
And Dr. Vishal from Jodhpur.
From AIIMS Jodhpur, Navy Nani के student हो, okay?
I have 2 questions, sir.
Yes.
Firstly, that we know the pathophysiology in various disorders cause diabetic neuropathy or alcohol cause gymnastic syndrome. We have the exact pathophysiology for the same. But exact pathophysiology that how the substance causing the schizophrenia, although in cannabis there is the environmental or the genetic both consideration is there, but how alcohol causes schizophrenia or alcohol?
Not alcohol. Cannabis has been linked more with schizophrenia than alcohol. तो सवाल को दोबारा पूछ लो। ये लोग इनाम देने वाले हैं बेटा। हाँ।
So exact pathophysiology or the neurobiology.
Pathophysiology. If you have attended my first 4 slides carefully, why psychiatric diagnosis? What are problems in psychiatric diagnosis? First 4 slides अगर तुमने ध्यान से सुनी नहीं उस समय शायद, उसमें इसी का आंसर है। It is a Nobel Prize question. What exactly leads to, at the neuronal level, at the metabolic level, at the organic level, what exactly leads to receptor, neurotransmitter level, what exactly leads to is a matter of research to my knowledge. However, maybe more learned people can answer this question.
Second question is, sir, regarding the pharmacotherapeutical management in dual diagnosis. What all consideration we have to take?
Last की 4 स्लाइड नहीं सुनी बेटा ध्यान से। मैंने हर एक चीज पर 4-4, 5-5 स्लाइड बना के मैं ये स्लाइड्स चेंज होके जाऊंगा। And all these slides can be used for your examination answers as well as enhancing your clinical skills. आप में से जो भी चाहे अपने पेन ड्राइव में कॉपी कर लेना है।
YouTube पे लेक्चर आएगा सर पूरा।
ये YouTube पे आएगा तो राजीव, thank you very much.
We'll edit it and then put it on the YouTube.
Great. तो मेरे YouTube प्रेजेंटेशन 19 से 30 हो जाएंगे।
Still going live. It is still on live.
अच्छा, it is still going on live. Great. I did not know this. Thank you. Any 2 question हो गए? Better. अब आगे. Yes. Name, your name and institution.
गुड आफ्टरनून सर, मेरा नाम डॉक्टर पवन कुमार है, डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ साइकोलॉजी, एसकेडी यूनिवर्सिटी हनुमानगढ़।
ग्रेट
सर, मेरा क्वेश्चन है डी एडिक्शन से रिलेटेड।
तुम एम कर रहे हो या एमए कर रहे
हो? मैं पीएचडी कर चुका हूँ,
साइकोलॉजिस्ट
और काउंसलर हूँ हनुमान।
काउंसलर, प्रैक्टिसिंग साइकोलॉजिस्ट।
तो जैसे डी एडिक्शन के कई केसेस जैसे मैं हैंडल करता हूँ, तो जनरली एक क्वेश्चन आता है कि जो एडिक्शन है हमें अलग अलग जैसे बोलते हैं कि कोई कहता है 21 दिनों में हम उसको निकल सकते हैं, कोई जैसे डी एडिक्शन सेंटर है वो 3 महीने का 6 महीने कोर्सेज रखते हैं।
तो डू दे हैव क्वालिफाइड पीपल इन दोज सेंटर्स?
नहीं।
नो। तो हमारा आधा आंसर तो मिल गया। आगे
तो मेरा इससे रिलेटेड मतलब सभी अपन बैठे हैं, दूसरे हिसाब से मेरा ये था कि क्या हम किसी भी पेशेंट को जनरली जैसे मैं नेगेटिव नहीं कहना चाहता, लेकिन किसी भी साइकियाट्रिस्ट के पास जा रहे हैं तो भी वो ये कहते हैं कि आप 2-3 महीनों में ठीक हो जाओगे। तो जैसे मैंने कहा
तो कोई स्टैंडर्ड रिप्लाई नहीं है, लेकिन मैं क्या करता हूँ वो तुमको बताऊंगा। When a person asks me कि सर मेरा इलाज कब बंद होगा या मैं कब ड्रग फ्री कहा जाऊंगा, I say 1 year after the detox. If you are drug free, then it is debatable. People can use their own clinical experience. Number 2, de-addiction and addiction. You must always say addiction is a relapsing. For anti-diabetic treatment, it is likely to fluctuate. Here the treatment strategy is different. And that includes you as psychologist and me as psychiatrist. Both. We have to use both pharmacotherapy and the behavioral management and work together. As far as drug treatment is concerned, what I do is I gradually withdraw my treatment. The anti-craving agents like Acomprol जल्दी बंद कर देते हैं, जैसे craving खत्म होती है. Anti-anxiety medication goes longer. It depends in what setup you work and who helps you to treat the patient. Second question. दो टुकड़ों में था तुम्हारा सवाल. लगभग साल भर तो आप बोलिए उनको कि एटलीस्ट 1 year you should be drug free. साल 1.5 साल भी बोलो, एटलीस्ट 1 year बोलो और डेट भी मत बोलो, वरना वो 1.5 साल बाद आके तेरे सिर पे सवार हो जाएगा. सर डेट बोला था और ये तो परसों पी लिया इसने, डेट तो हो गया पूरा. So always say that it is a recurring illness and patient, and there are many factors which lead to recurrence. It is not the biology, it is not only the drug withdrawal, but there are many social stresses as well. और promotional social sanction जो मैंने बहुत सारी चीजों में जिक्र किया वो भी होती है. 4 सवाल हो गए, 5वां है कोई? Yes. Can we call it a last question or you want to continue? This is going to be last question. हो जा बेटा, खड़ा हो जा. Mic दोस्त.
So my name is Suparas and pursuing MPhil from Aspect University.
दोबारा.
So my name is Suparas and I'm pursuing MPhil from Aspect University, Hanuman.
MPhil from Hanuman. Okay.
So my first question is, we have already talked about the substance use disorders and all. So what if the substance use disorders affecting the thiamine deficiency or affecting any neurotransmitter? Do we have any kind of pharmacotherapy treatment for that? Because we have already a lot of behavioral therapies.
नहीं, देखिए ऐसा है कि दोनों चीजों का इलाज आपको साथ करना पड़ेगा. फार्माकोथेरेपी आपको करनी है एंजाइटी रिडक्शन के लिए, डिप्रेशन के ट्रीटमेंट के लिए, उसको स्किज़ोफ्रेनिक सिम्टम्स है तो उसके इलाज के लिए, और बिहेवियर थेरेपी जो बहुत सारे लिस्ट मैंने बताई उनमें से कोई सी भी आप चूज कर लें. दैट यू हैव टू कंटिन्यू. देयर इज अनदर ट्रीटमेंट व्हिच वी यूज इन आवर सेंटर which is called MET, Motivation Enhancement Treatment, which our psychologists are doing. Our center, which you see here, is affiliated to 4 universities for MPhil training in clinical psychology, approved by the RCI. तो रोज हमारे यहाँ कम से कम 20 साइकोलॉजिस्ट होते हैं, ट्रेनिंग, अपार्ट फ्रॉम द 5-6. तो MET का जो ट्रीटमेंट है आपका, मोटिवेशन एनहांसमेंट ट्रीटमेंट, that I have found particularly useful in those patients who have poor motivation to leave alcohol. I think the chair asked me to stop here, but if there are more questions, we can talk on lunchtime. Okay?
I would like to request sir to please decide the winner.
One minute comment, sir. If you permit me, sir, half-minute comment, sir. Just query, sir, coming to my mind. I am Dr. V. Singh Yadav, sir. Did my MD under Professor A.K. Vora, and the thesis was again comorbidity among drug dependents, various drug dependents. तो जितना ध्यान पड़ता है सर, comorbidity का concept फिंस्टीन ने दिया था 80s, 85.
Absolutely.
So same pursuing the dialogue which you said, sir, the ICD-11 में इसका ड्यूअल डायग्नोसिस का कहीं मेंशन नहीं है, और उसका कंक्लूजन थीसिस का और इवन पोस्ट फैक्टो लिटरेचर सेज कि ड्यूअल डायग्नोसिस में कॉज एंड इफेक्ट रिलेशनशिप कुड नॉट बी एस्टैब्लिश्ड. तो 2007 के बाद इज दिस द रीजन कि ये थोड़ा लेस पॉपुलर हो गया और फेड आउट हो रहा है?
पता नहीं, एकेडमिक पॉलिटिक्स है ये.
ओके,
एकेडमिक पॉलिटिक्स बोलता हूँ मैं इसको.
थैंक यू सर.
ओके.
May I request Dr. Shiv Gautam to announce the winner of the question?
अरे यार बड़ा डिफिकल्ट है काम, लेकिन तुम्हारा सवाल क्या था बेटा, फिर ले जाओ. पर्सनालिटी डिसऑर्डर, ये अनकवर्ड एरिया था, इसने पूछा. आ जाओ. Tell your name again. आकांक्षा फ्रॉम निम्स। क्या बात है, निम्स से भी कोई जीत सकता है, मुझे अच्छा लगा। तुषार तुषार देखो कितना अच्छा पढ़ाता है और कितने अच्छे। आजा मैं अपन तीनों हैं ले भाई, तीनों का फोटो ले। Other questions were by those people who had not looked at the slides carefully, but this was the area not covered in my talk, so I have chosen this.
May I request coordinators to present a token of love to Anant and Dr. VD Singh.
And Dilwal साहब को दो सबसे पहले।
May I request chairpersons to on the stage to attend them.
एक पेयर है कोऑर्डिनेटर्स का और एक पेयर है चेयरपर्सन्स का।
क्या बात है, हमारे लिए तो आप सब कुछ हो रहा है।
दिनेश जी कुछ लिख लिया?
बहुत कुछ देखा आपने, बहुत कुछ प्यार की झप्पी।
हाँ लिखी करी प्रॉब्लम हो।
सर आप मुझे देना मैं आप मेरे को
हम लोगों ने सर हमने सुबह अपने गुरुओं का सम्मान किया था, तब आप पहुंचे नहीं थे, तो आई वुड लाइक टू कॉल अपॉन स्टेज डॉक्टर अजीत सिडाना सर, डॉक्टर भरत सिंह शेखावत सर एंड डॉक्टर राजीव अग्रवाल।
3 जनरेशन है, ये दोनों हैं, राजीव है, नेबिनानी भी है,
डॉक्टर नरेश नेबिनानी सर एंड डॉक्टर जूजर अली सर।
जूजर भी
आएगा आएगा।
सर
सभी आदमी ये मेरी यादगार फोटो
I would like to request all the residents to please proceed to at the first floor for quiz screening. You have to go at the restaurant at first floor,
Just go this way.
where the dinner was held yesterday. Just above this